Welcome to Enigma Vault, where every locked memory hides a bloody truth. I'm Nightfall, and tonight we'll step into the shadows where secrets never die. Jennifer is missing. Looking at the anxious expressions on my companions' faces, my stomach felt as heavy as if it were filled with lead. Jennifer Brown, the most cautious and meticulous person on our team, disappeared after moving her hideout. This is so abnormal. I had to act now and find her before anything bad happened to her. The current situation is much worse than we expected. Kevin Green's forces are larger and more insidious than we imagined. We must be more careful. Jack, let's go check out Jennifer's new hideout, I said to Jack Thompson. Jack is the most reliable partner among us. He is calm, composed, agile, and the person I trust the most. Now, I need his help. Okay, Jack said simply, with a determined gleam in his eyes. I hope we can find some clues. Jennifer's new hideout is in an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the city. When we arrived, the warehouse door was half open and a cold, damp smell hit us in the face. My heart sank, and I had a bad feeling. I pushed the door open cautiously, followed by Jack, and we walked back to back, carefully entering the warehouse. The warehouse was in a mess, with furniture overturned and debris scattered all over the floor, and a faint smell of blood in the air. My breathing suddenly became rapid. This was definitely not an ordinary disappearance. Someone has been here, Jack said, pointing to the messy footprints on the ground, and more than one person. I looked around, trying to find some useful clues from the chaotic scene. My ability to be reminded of something emotional might come in handy. I walked over to an overturned wooden box, took a deep breath, placed my hand on it, closed my eyes and concentrated. Broken wood, scattered dust, and a trace of fear. I seemed to see several men in black breaking in and having a fierce fight with Jennifer. I saw someone attacked Jennifer, I said, opening my eyes, my voice heavy. They took her away. Damn it, Jack cursed and punched the wall next to him. Kevin Green. It must be his men. I understand Jack's anger, but now is not the time to act on impulse. We have to find Jennifer as soon as possible before she suffers further harm. This place is a mess. They must be looking for something. I analyzed. There must be something important on Jennifer that they want. I remembered a USB flash drive that Jennifer had been carefully keeping, which contained evidence of Kevin Green's crime. Is this what they are doing? Just as we were trying to piece together the fragmented information, we suddenly heard the roar of a car engine outside the warehouse. Alarm bells went off in my mind, and I immediately realized that something was wrong. Someone is coming, I whispered. We have to be careful. Jack quickly ran to the door to observe the situation, and his expression instantly became solemn. It's Kevin Green's men, he said in a low voice. They're here to clean up the scene. I cursed inwardly. Kevin Green moved faster than we thought. They want to destroy the evidence and completely erase Jennifer's trace. We were trapped in the warehouse, attacked from all sides. If we go out now, we will undoubtedly walk into a trap. But if we stay here, once they get in, we won't be able to escape. I thought of a solution quickly, my brain working rapidly. We must find ways to delay time and bide our time. Jack, let's go to the second floor. I pointed to a staircase leading to the second floor in the corner of the warehouse and said, there's a wide view there. We can observe their actions and buy some time. Jack nodded, and we quickly and silently went up to the second floor. Through the window on the second floor, we can clearly see that several men in black have entered the warehouse and started destroying the evidence at the scene. They moved quickly and skillfully, obviously well-trained professionals. My heart sank to the bottom. We are now like turtles in a jar, with our hopes of escape becoming increasingly slim. Just when we were in trouble, and almost in despair, there was a sudden screeching brake sound and hurried footsteps outside the warehouse. Lily Rose's fingers flew on the keyboard, and green codes poured down on the screen like a waterfall. She bit her lip, frowned, and muttered some terms I couldn't understand. Ben, Rachel and I held our breath and nervously watched the cursor jump on the screen. We know that Jennifer's fate may well hang on this. Lily's hacking skills are indeed superb. She bypassed layers of firewalls, hacked into several servers of Kevin Green, and found the last place where Jennifer appeared, an abandoned dock warehouse. We even saw surveillance footage from inside the warehouse, and although it was grainy, we were sure it was Jennifer. The flame of hope burns in our hearts. However, just when we thought victory was in sight, the screen suddenly went black. Lily slammed the table and cursed. "Damn it! The clue is broken." My heart sank instantly. Kevin Green, this cunning guy. How could he let us find Jennifer so easily? I began to doubt Lily's ability. Could it be that she was just a trap set by Kevin? But on second thought, the technical prowess that Lily had demonstrated before was unquestionable, and she had no relationship with us, so there seemed to be no reason for her to betray us. It is more likely that Kevin Green anticipated that we would track him down and cut off the clues in advance. He's got to be kidding us. Ben waved his fist in anger. This bastard. Rachel was pale, her hands clasped together, and she was obviously more worried about Jennifer's safety than any of us. I forced myself to calm down. Now is not the time to complain and get angry. We need to find a breakthrough. I walked over to Lily and carefully observed the remaining code on the screen. "Lily, can you tell anything? How did he cut off the clues?" Lily shook her head, then pointed at the last line of garbled text on the screen. "He used some kind of advanced encryption algorithm. I need time to crack it. Also, he may have moved Jennifer. We have to hurry." Time. I suddenly realized that time is our biggest enemy. Why did Kevin Green kidnap Jennifer? What exactly does he want to do? Will he hurt Jennifer? Every second of delay could put Jennifer in more danger. "Lily, how long will it take you to crack it?" I asked anxiously. "At least a few hours, maybe longer." Lily's answer made me feel desperate. "We can't wait a few hours. I have to find another way." I looked around, trying to find new clues. My eyes fell on the surveillance video clip that Lily had found earlier. Although the picture is blurry, we may still be able to find some details that we have overlooked. I had Lily replay the video and we watched it frame by frame. The light in the warehouse was dim, and all I could see was Jennifer tied to a chair, her face full of fear. Suddenly, I noticed a fleeting figure appearing in the corner of the picture. "Wait, go back," I shouted. Lily rewinds the video a few seconds, and we see the figure again, although the face could not be seen clearly. Judging from the body shape and clothes, it seemed to be a woman. A woman? Could it be Kevin Green's accomplice, or another victim? This new discovery gave me a glimmer of hope. Perhaps she is the key to finding Jennifer. I looked at the broken clues, feeling anxious. I knew time was running out. The clue is broken. Damn it! I scratched my hair in annoyance. Kevin Green was like a slippery, venomous snake, always slipping away just when I was about to grab his tail. Situation is terrible now. Not only do we have to face the threat of Kevin Green, but we also have to be wary of his crazy brother Raymond. As the seconds ticked by, I felt like I was sitting on a powder keg that was about to explode. At this time, Richard walked in with a serious expression. "Raymond is making a big move," he said in a deep voice. "Intelligence shows that he plans to set off multiple explosions in the city center in order to cause large-scale chaos, divert our attention, and cover Kevin Green's actions." My heart sank. Raymond always acts crazy, and this plan is even more outrageous. I quickly thought of a response strategy. At present, we have to fight on two fronts, not only to stop Raymond's crazy plan, but also to continue tracking down Kevin Green's whereabouts. Richard has extensive connections within the police department and is a man of integrity and trust. He took the initiative to offer to strengthen security in the city center, mobilize more police forces to patrol and investigate, and minimize the damage caused by Raymond as much as possible. I thought this arrangement was reasonable, so I agreed. Peter Green, although he is Kevin Green's nephew, hates what his uncle has done, and has proven his loyalty many times. I think he is trustworthy. I looked at Peter and said, "We need your technical support to analyze Raymond's action plan and find out his specific goals and implementation steps so that we can make arrangements in advance." Peter nodded and immediately started to work. We spent the next few hours busy and intensely busy. Richard kept bringing news about the city's heightened security, and Peter also gradually restored Raymond's plan through technical means and identified several key targets. I feel like a taut spring, ready to respond to any unexpected situation at any time. However, just when we thought everything was under control, an unexpected figure appeared. William Thompson. William Thompson, Raymond's ace killer, a ghost-like figure. He was extremely skilled, ruthless, and it was said that he had never failed. I had heard rumors about him but never thought I would actually meet him. What does his appearance mean? Is it Raymond's last trump card? Or is it a trap set for us?
I felt a chill. The situation was more complicated and dangerous than we had imagined.
We must reassess the situation. The appearance of William Thompson disrupted all our arrangements. He is an extremely dangerous person. If we cannot control him effectively, he is likely to cause great obstacles to our actions, and even lead to the failure of the entire plan. I realized that I couldn't just sit there and wait any longer. The emergence of William Thompson is a huge threat, but it could also be an opportunity. If we can catch him, maybe we can find Raymond and Kevin Green's hiding place. I took a deep breath and looked at Jack Thompson. Although Jack and William are brothers, their personalities and positions are completely different. Jack is an upright man who hates evil and is deeply saddened by what William did. I knew that Jack longed to stop William himself, to end the fear and chaos he had brought. "Jack," I said firmly, "we must stop William Thompson." The Jack and me knew that a fierce battle was inevitable. Sweat stung my eyes, and my breathing became rapid and hot.
William Thompson was incredibly fast, like a flash of black lightning shuttling through the narrow space.
I barely dodged his fierce attack, but my chest was still hit by his fist, and I felt a sharp pain. Damn it! Although my ability to evoke emotions through scenes allowed me to find his weakness, overprotection of his family, this guy's fighting skills were so strong that I had no chance to exploit them. I quickly glanced around. Jack Thompson's situation was not much better than mine. Although he was strong, he seemed clumsy and slow compared to William Thompson's agile steps. To make matters worse, Kevin Green's men came flooding in and surrounded us. Although they are not strong individually, they are numerous and work well together, constantly compressing our space for activities. I knew in my heart that we were in a desperate situation. If we continue like this, we will be exhausted sooner or later. I have to find a way to break the deadlock. William Thompson pursued me relentlessly, seemingly deciding that I was the biggest threat. I dodged and thought quickly. Why did Kevin Green send someone at this time? Did he foresee our conflict with William Thompson, or is this just a coincidence? No, I don't believe in coincidences. Kevin Green is a shrewd guy, and he will never do anything without being sure. So, what is his purpose? Do you want to reap the benefits while you are still a fisherman? Or is there another plan? A possibility suddenly occurred to me. Kevin Green's target may not be us, but William Thompson. He might want to use us to get rid of William Thompson and unify the underworld. If that is the case, then William Thompson, like the rest of us, is a pawn of Kevin Green. Thinking of this, a glimmer of hope arose in my heart. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Perhaps we can join forces with William Thompson to fight against Kevin Green. Of course, this is just a hypothesis, and I'm not sure whether William Thompson would believe me. Besides, even if he believed me, we might not be able to defeat Kevin Green.
After all, Kevin Green is unfathomable and we know almost nothing about him.
But I have to take a gamble. I took a deep breath and decided to take a chance. I deliberately left a flaw to lure William Thompson into attacking. Just as he was about to hit me, I dodged to the side and shouted, "William Thompson, you are being used by Kevin Green. He wants to use us to get rid of you." William Thompson paused slightly, obviously not expecting me to say that. I took the opportunity to continue. "Think about it, why would Kevin Green send someone here at this time? He clearly knew that we were fighting you. He did this to reap the benefits." As soon as I finished speaking, one of Kevin Green's men suddenly attacked William Thompson. William Thompson reacted quickly and easily dodged the attack, but his face turned gloomy. I saw the doubt in his eyes gradually disappear, replaced by a cold, murderous intent. It seems that my words have aroused his suspicion. I was secretly happy, knowing that my plan was half successful. However, just when I thought things would turn around, the enemies around me suddenly stopped attacking, and they all took a step back, revealing a passage. At the end of this passage stood a tall and imposing man. I looked at him and felt a sense of foreboding. He walked towards me slowly, and every step seemed to be stepping on my heart, making me feel suffocated. I looked at him and knew that we were in a desperate situation. Sweat slid down my forehead, soaking my eyes, and my vision was blurred. I blinked, trying to see more clearly. 15 fully armed guys surrounded Jack Thompson and me. The laser guns in their hands flashed a faint blue light, which was particularly dazzling in the dim warehouse. We were betrayed. That much was obvious. I quickly scanned the surroundings. There were mountains of containers, and the only exit was blocked so tightly that not even a mouse could get out. I know very well that there is no chance of winning if I fight hard. Although Jack is quite skilled, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Not to mention that the other party has weapons. I have to find a way that will keep us alive. The image of Lily Rose's confident face and her fingers flying on the keyboard appeared in my mind. She's a top hacker. Maybe she can help. And Peter Green, the eccentric mechanical genius. His gadgets might also come in handy. I have to take a gamble. I took a deep breath and lowered my voice to Jack. "Listen, Jack. Our only hope right now is Lily and Peter. I need you to buy me some time while I contact them." Jack's face was full of worry, but he didn't ask any more questions. He just nodded firmly. "You go ahead. I'll try to delay them." He knew that now was not the time to hesitate. Any hesitation might lead to our downfall. I quickly hid behind a container and took out the encrypted communicator. The situation is urgent now. I must get in touch with Lily as soon as possible. If the communicator is jammed, all is lost. Fortunately, the communicator worked properly, and Lily's voice soon came from the other end. "Aiden, what happened?" I briefly told her the situation and proposed my plan. "Lily, we need you to disrupt their communication system and create chaos. As for Peter, I will have him make some small explosive devices to cause panic among them. We need time. We need opportunity." Lily was silent for a few seconds, then said firmly, "I know, Aiden. Peter is right next to me. We will act immediately." After hanging up the communicator, my heart was still in my throat. The success of the plan depends largely on the speed and efficiency of Lily and Peter. The enemy won't give us much time. I stuck my head out and observed the situation outside. Jack was dealing with those guys. He was like a nimble cheetah, shuttling back and forth between the containers and dodging the attacks of laser beams. He was agile, but they outnumbered me, so I had to act quickly. After a few minutes, I noticed the enemy's communications equipment began to flicker, and their shouting to each other became garbled. Done. Lily succeeded. I contacted Peter immediately to make sure he was ready. Peter's voice sounded a little nervous, but his tone was firm. "Everything is ready, Aiden. We can act at any time." I took a deep breath and said into the communicator, "Peter, detonate now." Almost at the same time, several dull explosions were heard in the warehouse. Although the power of the explosion is not great, it is enough to make the enemy panic. They looked around in panic, trying to find the source of the explosion. This is exactly the opportunity we need. I tightened my grip on the weapon in my hand and locked my eyes on the confused enemy. I know it's time to fight back. When the smoke cleared, the air was filled with a strong smell of blood. I held my knees and gasped violently. William Thompson collapsed to the ground. The battle just now almost exhausted all my strength. I glanced around and saw Jack supporting Sophia. Kevin Green's men were either dead or injured and had no power to resist. We won the battle, but it was only a short-lived victory. I know very well that the real enemy is Raymond hiding behind the scenes. William Thompson's appearance was too strange. He had remained neutral before, so why did he suddenly join forces with Kevin Green? Moreover, his attacks were ruthless and deadly, and it didn't seem like he was acting. I judged that William Thompson was most likely under the control of Raymond, or even that he was just a bait thrown by Raymond to test our strength. If this is true, then Raymond is more cunning than I thought. What exactly does he want to do? What is his ultimate goal? I must figure out these issues in order to take the initiative in the upcoming decisive battle. I walked over to Jack and whispered, "How's Sophia?" "She only suffered minor injuries. Nothing serious." Jack replied with a hint of worry in his tone. "Aiden, what should we do next?" I pondered for a moment and said, "Let's clean up this place first, and then go back to the safe house. Now is not the time to celebrate the victory. It is too dangerous to be exposed here. We need a safe place to discuss our next steps." Back at the safe house, I told Jack and Sophia my thoughts. They all agreed with my assessment that Raymond's conspiracy was far more complicated than we imagined. "Aiden, can your ability of evoking emotions through sight be used to track Raymond?" Sophia asked. "My ability of evoking emotions through sight allows me to sense some memory fragments of the owner of an object by touching it, which has helped us a lot in previous operations." I shook my head. "I need Raymond's personal belongings, or things he touches often, but we don't have these things right now." "Then how do we find him?" Jack seemed a little anxious. I walked to the window and looked at the sky outside, which was gradually darkening, and a strong sense of uneasiness surged in my heart. Raymond is like a poisonous snake hiding in the dark, ready to give us a fatal blow at any time. We must take the initiative and not sit back and wait for death. We need to find a breakthrough. I turned around with a determined look in my eyes. Although William Thompson was defeated by us, he must know something about Raymond. We need to find a way to get information from him. As the night deepened, the safe house became silent. The three of us sat around the table, each thinking about our own things. William Thompson's eyes kept flashing in my mind. It was a look of despair, fear, but also a hint of weirdness. This look made me feel uneasy, as if it foreshadowed some greater crisis was about to come. I have a feeling that William Thompson is just the beginning, and next we will face even more cruel tests, and this test may be closely related to the fate of each of us. The wind outside the window was howling, as if whispering some secret. I clenched my fists tightly, my heart filled with determination. No matter what, I will uncover Raymond's conspiracy, protect my friends, and safeguard our common beliefs. The smell of gunpowder made my throat tight, and the firelight illuminated the terrified faces of the city. Raymond, this madman, his so-called art is to turn the world into purgatory. He enjoyed it all, like a demon conducting a symphony of destruction. I looked at the thick smoke rising in the distance, and my heart sank. This was just the beginning. His real purpose was far more terrifying than this. "Jack, let's go to the West Side Mall, where the casualties are the heaviest." I forced myself to calm down and gave orders quickly. "Understood." Jack gripped the weapon tightly in his hand, his eyes firm. We split into several groups. Mia and Rachel were responsible for supporting the police, while Jack and I were tasked with finding out the truth about the explosion site and looking for clues to Raymond's next move. The scene at the West End Mall was even more tragic than I had imagined. The wreckage of buildings was scattered all over the ground, and the air was filled with dust and the smell of blood. The sounds of sirens and cries intertwined together, forming a picture of hell on earth. As soon as Jack and I approached the cordon, we were stopped by a group of men in black. "Kevin Green's people," Jack whispered. "It seems that Raymond and the Green family's cooperation is deeper than we expected. You can't go in. We have taken over this place," the man in black said in a cold and impolite tone. "We are here to assist in the investigation." I tried to remain calm, but my hand unconsciously reached for the dagger in my pocket. "Stop talking nonsense." The leader of the men in black waved his hand, and the others immediately surrounded him. I knew a fierce battle was inevitable. Their attacks were swift and fierce, and they were well trained and coordinated, but I'm not without a chance of winning. My ability to see things in action allows me to predict my opponent's attack intentions by observing their subtle movements. A man in black swung his punch at me. I dodged sideways and grabbed his wrist, twisting it hard. He screamed and the gun in his hand fell to the ground. Jack relied on his strong physique and rich combat experience to fight with several other men in black. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and everything around me seemed to slow down. I could feel the subtle vibrations in the air, hear the enemy's rapid breathing, and even smell the fear emanating from them. I opened my eyes again, and I seemed to be able to see the trajectory of their next move. Their attacks became slow and clumsy in my eyes. I was like a nimble cheetah, shuttling between them, and every move was precise and deadly. We have temporarily suppressed the enemy, but I know it is only temporary. Raymond won't give us a break. Just then, the lights in the city suddenly flickered, and then a large-scale power outage occurred. Traffic lights went out, vehicles came to a standstill, and the entire city fell into chaos. My communicator also lost signal, and we lost contact with the other groups. "Damn it!" Raymond activated the backup plan. Jack cursed. I had a bad feeling in my heart. This is not just a power outage. Raymond must have a deeper conspiracy. We are trapped here, isolated and helpless, and Raymond is hiding in the shadows, like a poisonous snake, waiting for the opportunity to strike us a fatal blow. I looked up at the dark sky, feeling powerless, but I know I can't give up. I must find Raymond and stop him from destroying this city and turning this world into what he calls a work of art. In the darkness, something suddenly occurred to me, and a bold idea gradually took shape in my mind. Sweat soaked my shirt and stuck to my back, giving me a sickening, sticky feeling. Lily leaned against the wall, exhausted, her face as pale as a piece of paper. We successfully broke through, and the mob under Raymond became a mess. After hearing the news that the police are about to make a full arrest, they became suspicious of each other, and even started fighting among themselves, which gave us a chance to escape. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my pounding heart. This is just a brief respite. I know. Raymond, that sinister and cunning madman, will never give up. He is like an enraged beast, lurking in the shadows, waiting to deal us a fatal blow. We have to get out of here. I looked around. The abandoned factory smelled pungent chemicals, and the air was filled with an uneasy silence. It's not safe here. Lily nodded and forced herself to stand up. There was still fear in her eyes, but more of it was determination. I know that she, like me, is ready for the next challenge. We moved carefully along the edge of the factory, taking every step with extreme caution. There seemed to be a tense atmosphere in the air, making it hard for me to breathe. I always feel that something is wrong, and an inexplicable sense of uneasiness lingers in my heart. Suddenly, Lily stopped and pointed to a warehouse not far ahead. She said in a trembling voice, "Aiden, look." I looked in the direction of her finger and saw that the door of the warehouse was open and dim light was coming from inside. A strange buzzing sound came from the warehouse, like the sound of some machine running, or like the low hum of some creature. My heart sank, and an ominous feeling came over me. My intuition tells me that there is a secret hidden there, a secret that is enough to plunge us into an abyss of no return. We exchanged glances, and without saying anything, We both understood what it meant. We have to go in and find out what's going on in there. The warehouse was dimly lit, and the air was filled with a suffocating musty smell. We groped forward and every step felt like walking on the edge of a knife. The buzzing sound became clearer and sharper, as if countless bees were buzzing in my ears. Finally, we arrived at the center of the warehouse. The scene in front of me made me gasp. In the center of the warehouse stood a gigantic machine, pitch black in color, oddly shaped, with a cold metallic luster on its surface. The machine is surrounded by dense wires and pipes, like a giant metal spider, lurking quietly in the darkness. What shocked me even more was that next to the machine there were several figures wearing white protective suits. They were busy operating the machines with fanatical expressions on their faces, as if they were performing some sacred ritual. I suddenly realized that Raymond's real goal was not money or power at all. His ambition was much crazier than I had imagined. This machine, this warehouse, everything about it points to a more terrifying truth. What are they doing? Lily's voice sounded in my ears, with a hint of trembling. I shook my head to indicate that I didn't know either, but I have a terrible guess in my mind, a guess that makes me shudder. At this moment, the machine suddenly made a huge roar, and the whole warehouse shook. The figures in protective suits also stopped their operations, turned around and stared at us with cold eyes. There was not a trace of human emotion in their eyes, only cold numbness and fanatical persistence. At that moment I felt that I was not facing human beings, but a group of puppets controlled by some force. I realized that we had fallen into Raymond's trap, a carefully designed trap that was enough to destroy everything. Countless thoughts flashed through my mind. Escape, call the police, ask for help, but I knew it was all too late. We are already deeply involved in it, and cannot extricate ourselves. Raymond's crazy plan is still going on. We must end this crisis as soon as possible. Otherwise, I dare not think about it anymore, because I know that what happens next may be beyond the imagination of all of us. Sweat soaked my back, and the tension enveloped me like an invisible net. Raymond, this madman, his plan is like a time bomb that may explode at any time and blow the city to pieces. We must stop him. We must end this before he causes more damage. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself down. I know now is not the time to panic. What we need is a clear mind and careful planning. I looked around and saw serious expressions on my companions' faces. We trust and rely on each other, which is our greatest strength. According to the intelligence we have so far, Raymond's most likely hiding place is the abandoned factory in the west of the city. I pointed to the location marked on the map. It's remote, easy to hide, and the factory has enough space inside to implement his crazy plan. What exactly is Raymond's plan? Lillian's voice trembled a little. She has always been the most emotional person in the team. I hesitated, not knowing whether I should tell her the truth. Raymond's plan was so crazy and so terrible that I was worried it would scare her. But I know that she has the right to know the truth. She is one of us. He wants to use a new virus to destroy the city. My voice is low and hoarse. This virus spreads very quickly and has a very high mortality rate. Once it breaks out, the consequences will be disastrous. Lillian's face turned pale instantly, but she quickly controlled her emotions, with a determined look in her eyes. We have to stop him. That's right. Richard White's voice was firm and powerful. I have contacted the police station and mobilized all available police forces. We will act with you. Richard is our insider in the police station. He has been silently supporting us and providing us with intelligence and help. I know he doesn't completely agree with what we're doing, but he understands that we're fighting for the safety of our city. We began to formulate a battle plan. The abandoned factory has complex terrain and intricate internal structure. We need to make a careful plan to ensure that nothing goes wrong. We split into two groups. I pointed to the map. One group will enter from the main gate to attract the enemy's attention. and the other group will sneak in from the side gate to find Raymond and stop him. I will lead the team to attack from the main gate. Richard volunteered. You are responsible for sneaking in and finding Raymond. I know this is the most reasonable arrangement. Richard's experience and prestige can better command the police force, while we are better at covert operations. Okay, it's settled. I nodded. Everyone get ready. We must make a quick decision and not give Raymond any chance. We each checked our equipment to make sure everything was ready. The tense air was filled with the smell of gunpowder, and everyone was ready to fight. We left our hiding place and headed in the direction of the abandoned factory. The night enveloped the earth, as if foreshadowing the coming storm. However, just as we were about to reach the abandoned factory, an accident happened. The sound of gunfire tore through the silence of the night. Tongues of flame jumped in the darkness, and hot bullet shells fell at my feet. Damn it.
We were ambushed.
Kevin Green, this old fox. I gritted my teeth and tried to calm myself down. How did he know our plan of action? Is there a traitor among us? This thought flashed through my mind. Now is not the time to pursue responsibility. Saving my life is the most important thing. I quickly looked around to assess the situation. Our originally neat team was broken up. Several police officers fell to the ground groaning in pain, and more police officers were scattered on the roadside fighting on their own, and the firepower was severely suppressed. The enemy was obviously well prepared, had fierce firepower, and occupied advantageous terrain. We can't go on like this. We will be defeated one by one. I had to find a safe shelter as quickly as possible, and then find a way to regroup the team. My eyes locked on a boulder on the side of the road, large enough to block the enemy's bullets. I took a deep breath, crouched down, and rushed over quickly. Bullets whizzed past my head and I felt death passing by me. After reaching the boulder, I immediately stuck my head out to observe the situation. Officer John was hiding behind an abandoned car, his face covered in blood, but he was still resisting tenaciously. Several other police officers also found cover, and their sporadic firepower was barely enough to keep the enemy at bay. I have to contact them and reorganize the attack. I pulled out my intercom. John, can you hear me? Aiden, I'm still alive. Damn, we're surrounded. John's voice trembled a little, but he remained calm. Hold on. Find a way to break through to me. Let's regroup. I gave the order decisively. The most important thing now is to regroup our forces and not fight in a dispersed manner any longer. I assessed the enemy's firepower distribution and found that their main firepower was concentrated in the center of the road, while the firepower on both sides was relatively weak. If we can outflank them from both sides, we might be able to turn the situation around. John, you are responsible for the cover. I will lead the men to detour from the left side. I shouted into the walkie-talkie. Understood, John replied briefly. I took a deep breath and gestured to several nearby police officers, asking them to follow me. We bent over, using the buildings and trees on the roadside as cover, and moved forward cautiously. The enemy's bullets were still flying around us, but we were gradually closing in on their flank. I felt my heart pounding and adrenaline rushing through my body. We are only one step away from success, but we are also facing huge risks. Kevin Green's cunning and Raymond's madness made me feel deeply uneasy. If we don't stop Raymond soon, the consequences will be disastrous. We successfully got around the enemy's flank, and I raised my pistol, aimed at an enemy figure, and pulled the trigger without hesitation. Gunfire rang out again, and we launched a counterattack. The fighting continued, with gunshots, explosions, and shouting intertwined to form a chaotic and cruel symphony. I looked at the scattered team and injured police officers, and my heart was filled with anxiety and worry. Can we break through? Can Raymond's crazy plan be stopped? All of this is still unknown. The sound of gunfire, explosions, and roars interweave into a symphony of death. I looked at the scattered team and the injured police officers groaning in pain, and a chill ran from the soles of my feet to the top of my head. Kevin Green, this name is now like a poisonous snake lurking in my heart, gnawing at my sanity. The ambush he set was so precise and ruthless that it completely exceeded our expectations. We underestimated him, and now we are in an unprecedented crisis. Taking a deep breath, I forced myself to calm down. Panic will not solve any problems. It will only accelerate our demise. I looked around and saw Jack and Sophia were near me. They were also trying to maintain order and directing the officers to find cover. I have to discuss countermeasures with them and find a way to survive. Jack, Sophia, come here, I growled, gathering them around me. The three of us leaned against the wreckage of the bombed vehicle and quickly exchanged information. The enemy's firepower is too strong. We can't break through head-on, Jack said solemnly. The communication is also interfered, so we can't request support. Sophia pointed to a location on the map and said, the enemy seems to have focused on the main road. The defense near the abandoned warehouse is relatively weak. Storehouse. I looked in the direction Sophia pointed. The warehouse stood alone on the edge of the battlefield. The surrounding terrain was complex, and it was indeed easy to be overlooked. This is an opportunity, but it is also a risk. Will the enemy really ignore this point? If this is a trap, we will be more passive. No, I have to take a gamble. Instead of waiting for death, it is better to give it a try. Since the enemy set an ambush, they must have a careful plan. They would not have thought that we would choose to break out from the seemingly most dangerous place. Moreover, the terrain of the warehouse is complex. And even if there is an ambush inside, we can use the terrain to maneuver. Lily, can you interfere with the enemy's communications? Create as much chaos as possible. I shouted into the communicator. Lily is the best hacker in our team.
No problem, give me some time. Lily's voice was a little nervous, but her tone was firm.
Peter, we need smoke bombs. The more the better. I looked at Peter again. He is our blasting expert and can always bring us surprises at critical moments. It's being made. It will only take 5 minutes. Peter's voice was steady and powerful, which made me feel a lot more at ease. 5 minutes. These 5 minutes will determine our life or death. I looked around again, determined the breakout route, and told Jack and Sophia the plan. They all agreed and began to organize police officers to prepare for the breakout. Lily's interference was effective. The enemy's communications became noticeably disrupted, and their offensive was slightly weakened. Peter's smoke bombs were also completed. One after another they were thrown out, quickly spreading and blocking the enemy's vision. Now, break out, I yelled, and rushed out first. Jack and Sophia followed closely behind, and the remaining police officers also caught up and ran towards the abandoned warehouse. In the thick smoke, the enemy's gunfire became chaotic, and they were obviously caught off guard by this sudden change. With the cover of smoke, we successfully broke through the enemy's encirclement and ran towards the warehouse. However, I always felt uneasy in my heart. Is this abandoned warehouse really as safe as we think? I have a feeling that we have just escaped from the tiger's mouth and entered the wolf's den. Sweat slid down my temples and soaked my collar. The warehouse was filled with the smell of damp mold and rust. In the dim light, the traps looked even more hideous. Damn Kevin Green, this old fox! He actually predicted that we would come here. I looked around and saw Anna crouching over a pressure-activated device, carefully removing the attached leads with tweezers. The beads of sweat on her forehead glistened in the dim light, and her expression was focused and nervous. Anna's blasting skills are first-rate, which is one of the reasons why we dare to go deep into the tiger's den. Another companion, Old Mark, was holding a modified metal detector, carefully probing the ground for possible hidden traps. Old Mark is experienced and familiar with all kinds of traps. With him around, we can avoid a lot of dangers. How many people are outside? I asked Old Mark in a low voice. Old Mark moved his ears and listened carefully to the noise outside. At least 20 of them, and they are well equipped. It seems Kevin Green has invested heavily this time. 20. There were only 3 of us, and we were trapped in this booby-trapped warehouse. The situation is worse than I thought. I have to come up with a solution as soon as possible. What is Kevin Green's purpose? The fact that he went to such lengths to lure us here and trap us instead of just killing us outright shows that he has some agenda. What does he want? Is it intelligence? Or do you want to use us as hostages? Whatever it is, we can't just sit there and wait for death. My mind was racing, analyzing the current situation. Kevin Green is not trustworthy. He set a trap and sent people to surround the warehouse. It is obvious that he wants to kill us. Anna and old Mark are trustworthy. They are my partners in life and death, and have proven their loyalty and ability in countless missions. Now we are facing 2 problems. One is the trap in the warehouse, and the other is the enemy outside the warehouse. I looked at Anna and Mark Sr., both experienced agents who knew how to survive difficult situations. I have to trust them and rely on the strength of the team to find a glimmer of hope. Anna, how long will it take to dismantle the trap? I asked. The most complicated ones have been dealt with. The rest are just small things that can be cleaned up in 10 minutes. Anna replied without looking up. 10 minutes. Time is running out. I have to come up with a plan to break out within these 10 minutes. I have a general understanding of the terrain of the warehouse. There is a rolling door on the west side, which is our only exit, but the entrance must be heavily guarded now. To the east is a pile of abandoned shipping containers that could perhaps be used as shelter. A frontal attack would definitely not work, as we were outnumbered by the enemy, and we were trapped in a warehouse full of traps. We must outsmart you. I looked at the traps in the warehouse, and an idea suddenly came to my mind. Since Kevin Green has set a trap for us, why don't we give him a taste of his own medicine? I carefully observed the layout and types of these traps. Pressure-triggered devices, infrared sensors, tripwires. There were so many types. It was dizzying. These were originally traps, designed to be used against us. But if used properly, they might become the key to our counterattack. A bold plan gradually took shape in my mind. I whispered my plan to Anna and old Mark. They all looked surprised after hearing it, but then a glimmer of excitement flashed in their eyes.
Good idea, old Mark whispered. Let's do as you say.
Anna also nodded in agreement. 10 minutes passed quickly, and Anna completed the final trap removal work. Are you ready? I looked at them and asked in a deep voice. We can take action at any time. Anna and old Mark answered in unison. I took a deep breath, looked at the originally deadly traps in the warehouse, and knew in my heart that we couldn't just sit there and wait for death. The air in the warehouse was as heavy as solidified asphalt, a sickening mixture of mold and rusty metal smells. The dim light from overhead shone down, casting our elongated shadows on the ground full of traps, like a group of prey trapped in a spider web. Peter held a pair of pliers in his hand, beads of sweat dripping down his forehead, and nervously dismantled the trap connected to the tripwire under his feet. Anna, John, and I watched our surroundings vigilantly to prevent any unexpected situations. We cannot sit idly by and wait for death. I know that if we continue to be trapped here, we will be discovered by the enemies outside sooner or later. I looked around. The arrangement of these traps seemed chaotic, but they also revealed a sense of careful design. The enemy is cunning. They know we will try to dismantle the trap, so they set it up in an extremely complicated way. Peter's technical knowledge can only deal with some simple traps, but we have no idea how to deal with those complex mechanisms. I have to find a way out before the enemy gets in. Peter, be careful. We don't know what that wire is connected to, I whispered to him, my eyes fixed on the pliers in his hand. Peter nodded and operated more carefully. Anna leaned behind a pile of wooden boxes, holding a pistol seized from the enemy in her hand. She was on guard, ready to deal with any enemy that might appear at any time. John searched the other side of the warehouse, hoping to find some useful tools or clues. Just then there was a sharp sound outside the warehouse, followed by a thick white smoke pouring in from the warehouse door. Tear gas. I thought to myself that this was not good. We immediately covered our mouths and noses, but the choking gas still spread quickly. Our eyes felt burning, and breathing became difficult. Damn it, John cursed and took out a few simple gas masks from his pocket and distributed them to us. This thing won't last long, we have to speed up. I put on the mask, my vision became blurry, and the situation in the warehouse became more dangerous. The thick smoke obscured the view and made the trap more difficult to identify. We have to be more cautious and tread carefully with every step. My brain was working rapidly, thinking of ways to deal with the situation. Conventional methods obviously don't work, so we have to find another way. My eyes fell on a complex metal device next to me, which was connected to several thin wires leading in different directions. I have a hunch that this device may be the key to controlling the entire trap system. Suddenly, I thought of my ability, being moved by the sight. If I could touch the device, perhaps I could go back to the scene when it was set up and understand its working mechanism and how to break it. I took a deep breath and tried to keep myself calm. I know this is our only hope. I reached out and gently touched a part on the device. In an instant, a picture appeared before my eyes. A man in a black uniform was squatting in front of the device, carefully adjusting the circuits on it. He was muttering something, as if confirming something. In the picture, he also mentioned a name, Kevin Green. I know this person. He is an important leader of the enemy. I continued to concentrate, and more details flooded into my mind. I saw the trigger mechanism of the trap, saw how the wires were connected, and even saw Kevin Green's expression when he set the combination.
I know how to do it! I shouted excitedly, explaining my discovery to my friends.
This device is the core that controls the entire trap system. As long as its password is cracked, all the traps can be removed. For the next few minutes, I directed Peter to follow the steps I saw. Anna and John were on guard to buy us time. Thick smoke still filled the warehouse, and our eyes and throats felt like they were on fire. But we didn't give up. Just when we were about to dismantle all the traps, a slight metal friction sound came from deep in the warehouse. Sweat soaked my collar, and tension coiled around my nerves like a poisonous snake.
Lily's discovery was undoubtedly a ray of hope, but now this ray of hope seems to be swallowed up by darkness again.
I looked at the tunnel structure diagram that Lily sent to me on the computer screen. This secret tunnel was originally designed to facilitate the evacuation of Kevin Green's men in an emergency, but now it has become our only hope.
Damn, it's blocked.
I immediately realized that the enemy might have planted a spy. No one except us knew we would choose this path. Lily, Ben and Rachel, I trust them absolutely. Then the person who leaked the secret could only be... I suddenly looked at Emma, who had been silent all the time. She has spoken very little since joining us, and always avoids my gaze intentionally or unintentionally. Could it really be her? I'm not sure, and now is not the time to question her. The most urgent task is to find a way to pass through this channel. Lily, can you determine the location and material of the blockage? I forced myself to calm down. Now was not the time to doubt my teammates. Only by uniting together could we break through the siege. According to the infrared scan, the blockage is located in the middle of the passage. It is a reinforced concrete structure, about 3 meters thick. Lily's voice came from the headset, with a hint of anxiety. With our current equipment, it will be difficult to break through in a short period of time. 3 meters thick, reinforced concrete. It was almost a death sentence. Even if there were explosives, blasting them in such a narrow passage would be tantamount to suicide. I rubbed my temples and felt a headache. Is there any other way? Ben asked anxiously, his eyes switching back and forth between Lily and me. I looked around and saw that the warehouse was in a mess, with tools left over from dismantling the traps scattered all over the floor. Suddenly, my eyes fell on a cutting machine that we had forgotten in the corner. It was originally designed to cut the steel bar locks on warehouse doors, and has a lot of power. A bold idea came to my mind. "Lily, what are the top and bottom of the tunnel made of?" I asked, with a glimmer of hope in my heart. "The top is regular concrete, and the bottom is weight. The bottom is a drainage pipe connected to the sewer system." Lily's voice was filled with a hint of surprise. "If we can cut to the drainage pipe, maybe we can bypass the blockage from the sewer. It's a crazy idea, but it's our only hope. The sewer environment is harsh and full of unknown dangers, but it is better than waiting to die." I immediately told others my idea, and everyone agreed. We acted quickly and moved the cutter to the entrance of the passage. Lily confirmed the location of the drainage pipe again, and I took a deep breath and started the cutting machine. A piercing noise echoed in the narrow passage, and sparks flew. I tried hard to control the direction of the cutting machine, not daring to have the slightest deviation. As time passed, my arms began to ache and sweat blurred my vision. Finally, with a muffled sound, a big hole was cut in the drainage pipe. A foul odor hit my face and I couldn't help but frown. "Okay." I turned off the cutter and said to the others, "Let's go down from here." I was the first one to crawl into the sewer pipe, and a stream of cold sewage immediately reached my ankles. In the darkness, I couldn't see the road ahead and could only grope forward with the faint light of the flashlight. I looked at the dark pipe ahead, my heart filled with anxiety and fear. Where will this road to the unknown lead us? The smell of rubble and dust from the explosion made me cough a few times.
Damn, this passage is narrower than I thought.
I looked back at Jack and Sophia. Their faces were also covered with dust, but their eyes were determined. I knew this was our last chance, and we had to succeed. Peter is a really capable guy. The small blasting devices he made were not very powerful, but they accurately blew away the obstacles in the passage without causing a larger collapse. I have to admire his skills to create something so effective with limited resources in such a short time. Of course, I am also very lucky because he is on my side. Passing through the blasted gap, the interior of the passage became even darker and damper. I felt vaguely uneasy, as if I was being stared at by a poisonous snake. I slowed down and listened carefully to the movements around me, fearing that there might be a trap. Kevin Green is not an easy guy to deal with. He is cunning and cruel. I have to be careful. A faint light appeared at the end of the passage, and my heart rose to my throat. Success is within reach, but so is the potential for greater danger. I took a deep breath and tightened my grip on the weapon. Jack and Sophia were also ready for battle, and we exchanged a look that said it all. The moment we rushed out of the passage, I felt a chill. Kevin Green. He is actually waiting for us here in person. He was followed by a group of fully armed men, blocking our way. I immediately realized that this was a trap. He had anticipated that we would go this way.
Damn it.
I cursed inwardly. It's too late to regret now, so I can only go ahead with it. I looked around, trying to calm myself and analyze the situation. Kevin Green stood there with a smug look on his face, as if he was sure of victory. All of his men looked ferocious and were obviously well-trained thugs. We are outnumbered, and a head-on fight is definitely not going to work. I have to find a way to break through. My ability to be emotionally moved came in handy in this situation. I closed my eyes and felt the emotions around me. Fear, tension, excitement, all kinds of emotions intertwined together, like an invisible net covering the entire space. I tried to filter out irrelevant information and focus on the emotions of Kevin Green and his men. Suddenly, I felt something strange. Beneath Kevin Green's pride, there was a hint of uneasiness, and amid his men's excitement, there was also a hint of fear. They are scared.
What are they afraid of?
My eyes snapped open and my gaze fell on a box behind Kevin Green. The box was wrapped tightly, and it was impossible to tell what was inside, but it gave off a dangerous aura. I see. They are afraid of what is in the box. That is their weakness. Jack, Sophia, cover me. I yelled and rushed towards the box. Jack and Sophia immediately opened fire, attracting the enemy's attention. Lily also began to take action, and her hacking skills played a huge role, disrupting the enemy's communications and weapon systems. Peter got some jamming equipment from somewhere, slowing down the enemy's movements. Bullets whizzed past me, and I dodged and moved, trying to avoid the enemy's attacks. I have only one goal, and that is that box. I had to figure out what was inside so I could find a way out of this dilemma. With the team's cooperation, we gradually gained the upper hand. Kevin Green saw that the situation was not good. The joy of victory came like a tide, but quickly receded, leaving behind a calm beach. I took a deep breath. Kevin Green's capture did not make me feel relieved, but more nervous. This guy is as cunning as a fox. If it weren't for the good cooperation of the team, we wouldn't have been able to catch him so easily. Moreover, Raymond is the real mastermind behind the scenes. Kevin Green's arrest is more like a signal that the real challenge is about to come. I observed Kevin Green, who was tied up. There was no fear on his face, but instead a strange smile. This made me even more alert. Would Raymond allow his confidence to be arrested so easily? Could this be a fraud? I quickly glanced at the players around me. Their faces were filled with joy of victory, which made me feel a little uneasy. I have to remind them that the battle is not over yet, and it can even be said that the real battle has just begun. Everyone be careful. Don't let your guard down. Kevin Green's arrest may just be a trap. I raised my voice and spoke in a serious tone. When the team members heard my warning, the smiles on their faces gradually disappeared, replaced by solemnity and vigilance. I looked around and made sure there was no ambush before giving the order to continue moving forward. Our target was an abandoned factory. Along the way, my brain was working rapidly, analyzing the current situation. Raymond must have had his reasons for choosing the abandoned factory as the location for the final battle. The abandoned factory has a complex terrain and is easy to defend but difficult to attack. Moreover, Raymond has been operating there for many years, so it must be full of traps. We must be careful and cautious at every step. I was still thinking about Raymond's purpose. Why did he go to so much trouble to make such a big fuss? Is it for some special technology, or is it for some unspeakable secret? Kevin Green's weird smile appeared in my mind again, and I always felt that things were not that simple. When we reached the abandoned factory, I immediately ordered a halt. There was a faint smell of gunpowder in the air, which made me more certain of my judgment. Raymond must have set an ambush here, waiting for us to fall into his trap. I have to investigate the situation before I can make a plan for the next step. I carefully observed the perimeter of the abandoned factory, looking for an entrance to sneak in. The factory walls were mottled and dilapidated, and most of the windows were broken, but the main door was closed, and there were several abandoned vehicles blocking the door, which was obviously intentional. This made me more certain that Raymond was waiting for us inside. I chose a relatively secluded corner and approached the factory wall cautiously. Through a small hole in the wall, I saw what was going on inside the factory. My heart sank. The factory was filled with explosives and traps. Various lines crisscrossed each other like a huge spider web, waiting for its prey to fall into the trap. Raymond was standing in the middle of the factory, with his back to me, seemingly examining something. His figure looked particularly eerie in the dim light, like a messenger from hell. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself down. The situation is now worse than I thought. The number of explosives and traps in the factory is staggering. If you rush in rashly, you will undoubtedly be seeking your own death. I must come up with a foolproof plan to ensure the safety of the team, successfully subdue Raymond, and uncover all the truth. I slowly backed away from the small hole. Standing outside the abandoned factory, I looked at the explosives and traps inside, and my heart was filled with anxiety and uneasiness. William Thompson fell, but the joy of victory did not stay in my heart for long. My instincts tell me that the real threat, Raymond Clark, is still lurking in the shadows, and his schemes are far more complex and dangerous than we imagined. I looked around. Lily's face was pale. Peter's brow was furrowed, and we all understood that the battle had just begun. "We must act immediately," I said in a deep voice. "Raymond must be planning a bigger conspiracy. We must stop him before he acts." Lily and Peter both nodded in agreement.
William Thompson was just a pawn of Raymond's, a cover to distract us from the real goal, which must be greater and more destructive.
Raymond is a cautious and suspicious person, and he would never put all his eggs in one basket. Lily suggested using her hacking skills to break into Raymond's computer system, which was the quickest way to obtain intelligence. Peter is responsible for analyzing the defense mechanisms that Raymond may use and providing technical support to Lily. I thought about it carefully, and this is our best option at the moment. Raymond's computer must contain the information we want. We took action immediately. Lily operated the computer skillfully, her fingertips flying on the keyboard, and lines of code scrolled on the screen in front of her. Peter watched closely from the side, offering suggestions from time to time to help Lily bypass some complex firewalls. I paced back and forth, feeling anxious. I know time is of the essence, and every second counts. As time went on, Lily's face became more and more solemn, and beads of sweat oozed from her forehead. "His defenses are more sophisticated than I thought," she said. "I need more time." "Kevin Green," Peter said suddenly. "I suspect he designed the defense system. He is proficient in network security and is loyal to Raymond." Kevin Green is Raymond's right-hand man and a technical expert. His presence undoubtedly increases the difficulty of our obtaining intelligence, but this also indirectly confirms our guess that Raymond is indeed hiding something. Lily continued to work hard, trying various methods to break through the defense program set up by Kevin Green. Just when we were about to succeed, the screen suddenly flickered and then all the data disappeared. "Damn it," Lily cursed. "He activated the backup defense program, and my program was completely blocked." We all knew what this meant. Kevin Green was aware of our actions and was actively protecting Raymond's core secrets. "It seems we underestimated Kevin Green," Peter said. "He is tougher than we thought." I felt defeated, but I knew we couldn't give up. I closed my eyes, trying to calm myself down and think about my next move. Suddenly, I thought of my special ability, being moved by the sight of something. Whenever I touch the objects Raymond used, I can feel his emotions and thoughts at the time. Perhaps this can be the key to our breakthrough. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself down. Lily's successful invasion was undoubtedly a shot in the arm, but Raymond's actions were like a bucket of cold water poured over our heads, reminding us that time is running out. It was now clear. Raymond was crazier and more determined than we had expected. He was no longer satisfied with manipulating behind the scenes, but chose direct violent destruction. This means that he is either already sure of victory, or is desperate. I have to decide which one he is. If it is the former, then we have almost no chance of winning. But if it is the latter, it means that he may have encountered some obstacles, and we still have a chance. I tend to prefer the latter.
I know a little about Raymond's character. He is a cautious, almost paranoid person. He would not choose such a high-risk action unless it is absolutely necessary. He probably did this to create confusion, divert attention, or for some strategic purpose. Regardless, we must act quickly. Lily, does the intelligence you obtained give any clues about his next plan? I asked. Lily shook her head, her face serious. No, I only downloaded part of the information. The content about his core plan is encrypted. I need more time to crack it. Time again. What we lack most is time. I gritted my teeth and suddenly remembered the diary left by Kevin Green. The diary mentioned that Kevin once designed an emergency plan that could bypass Raymond's defense system and directly access his core database. But the key to this plan lies in a specific trigger condition, which Kevin did not write explicitly in his diary, but used an obscure expression.
a melody that can only be remembered in the most desperate moments. What does this mean? I chewed on this sentence over and over again, and an idea suddenly came to my mind. Kevin Green is a music lover. He has always kept an old piano in his office. Could it be that I immediately thought of using my ability to be reminded of something? If I could find the piano Kevin used, maybe I could go back into his memory and find a melody that would be the key to triggering the emergency plan. Lily, we need to find Kevin Green's piano, I said urgently. It's probably in his office. Although Lily didn't understand my intention, she chose to believe me. She quickly retrieved the surveillance video from Kevin's office, confirmed the existence of the piano, and locked down its location. Next, we faced a new problem. How to get into Kevin Green's office. The place is now controlled by Raymond's men. I have carefully analyzed the current situation. First of all, we can't force our way in, as that would only alert the enemy. Secondly, we must act quickly and not give Raymond more time. After some thought, I decided to take another risk and use my abilities. I asked Lily to find a cleaner who used to work in Kevin's office. By contacting him, I recalled his memory and found the alternative passage and access code to the office. Everything was ready. Lily used her superb hacking skills and my intelligence to successfully bypass the defense system and enter Kevin Green's office. I sat down at the piano, closed my eyes, and took a deep breath. My fingertips lightly touched the piano keys, and a familiar touch came. I tried to immerse myself in Kevin Green's memory, his emotions, his thoughts. A vague melody gradually emerged in my mind, and my fingers began to dance on the keys involuntarily. As the last note fell, a hidden program window suddenly popped up on the computer screen. Success, Lily shouted excitedly. I looked at the smoke rising in the city, and a strong sense of uneasiness surged in my heart. This invisible war has just begun. The cold wind, carrying the smell of rust, filled my nostrils. The iron gate of the abandoned factory opened inwards eerily, like the fangs of a giant beast. My heart was pounding as I stared at the intricate network of pipes, the mountains of waste, and the looming tripwires. I know that the real decisive battle is here. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself down. Raymond, this cunning guy, chose this place as the location for the final battle. He must have set up a tight net. I must be careful and not let my brothers die in vain. Jack, Peter, let's go in. Remember, safety is the most important thing. I lowered my voice and said to the two companions behind me, Jack is my old partner, agile and quick to react. Peter is a technical expert, proficient in various electronic equipment and mechanical devices. The three of us each have our own strengths, and only by cooperating with each other can we survive this fierce battle. Understood, Jack answered briefly, with determination in his eyes. Peter pushed his glasses up on his nose and nodded in agreement. Jack and I chose to enter the factory first, while Peter stayed outside to be responsible for communications and support. My ability to be inspired by something is especially important in this environment. By touching the objects around me, I can go back in time and see the scenes where they were placed and touched, thereby inferring the distribution of traps and the movements of enemies. The interior of the factory was dimly lit and filled with suffocating dust. I took each step carefully, my hand gently running across the cold metal wall, feeling the remaining warmth and touch. With the help of the sights and scenes ability, I saw Raymond's men busy here, planting explosives, setting traps with cruel smiles on their faces. My heart sank. It seemed that Raymond had invested a lot of money this time. Be careful. There are triggered explosives here. I pointed to an inconspicuous metal plate on the ground and reminded Jack. Jack stopped immediately and looked at me with gratitude. We continued walking forward, and I kept touching objects around me, trying to foresee danger in advance. Suddenly, I felt something empty beneath my feet and the ground collapsed. I reacted quickly, grabbing Jack's arm and activating my sights and feelings ability to go back to the moment the trap was set. I saw a hidden mechanism right at the edge of the collapsed ground. "Peter, the ground is collapsing. We need support," I shouted into the communicator. "Received. Stabilizing the ground." Peter's voice came from the communicator. I concentrated my attention, remembering the location and operation of the mechanism. At the critical moment, I reached out and pressed the mechanism accurately. The collapsed ground stopped sinking, and Peter used some technical means to temporarily stabilize the ground. "That was a close call," Jack said with lingering fear. "Thanks to you, Aiden." I nodded and said nothing. "I know this is just the beginning, and more dangerous challenges are yet to come." I activated my sights and scenes ability again, trying to explore farther away. Suddenly, I saw a group of figures flash by in the depths of the factory. They were wearing black uniforms, and holding weapons in their hands. Although I couldn't see their faces clearly, I had a strong feeling that they were Raymond's men. A chill ran from the soles of my feet straight up to my head. The air seemed to be filled with an oppressive atmosphere of impending storm. The sound of gunfire, metal collision, and roars intertwined together, and was deafening. The air was filled with the pungent smell of gunpowder and motor oil. I was breathing heavily and my clothes were soaked with sweat. Although the battle just now was fierce, I was able to predict my opponent's actions by relying on the emotional scene and react one step ahead almost every time. Jack's fire suppression is accurate and effective, and Sophia is agile and always provides timely support when our side is in trouble. We cooperated well, and like a sharp knife, tore through the defense line formed by Raymond's men. I wiped the sweat from my face and thought that Raymond was just like that. It seems that our previous caution was a bit excessive, and perhaps we overestimated his strength. As soon as this thought flashed through my mind, I became alert. Something is wrong. It's going too smoothly. With Raymond's cunning, it would be impossible for him to let us get deep into the factory so easily. He must have a backup plan. Just then, a shrill alarm sounded and the entire factory began to shake. My heart sank. Oh no, there is indeed a trap. Countless mechanical arms stretched out from the walls, ceiling, and even from under the floor, wielding sharp blades and spewing scorching flames, sweeping towards us like a steel jungle. We were divided and surrounded in a small area, with no way out. I quickly looked around, assessing the situation. Jack's heavy firepower had limited effect on these mechanical arms, and Sophia's close combat skills were difficult to use. However, my ability to be evoked by the sight is greatly limited here. Although the movements of these robotic arms have a certain regularity, their speed is too fast, and their number is too large for me to predict them all. "Damn it, we're trapped," Jack cursed, shooting at the approaching mechanical arm with his machine gun, and shouted, "Aiden, think of a way. What about your ability?" I clenched my teeth, and my brain raced. The current situation is extremely critical, and we must come up with a solution as soon as possible. A head-on fight won't work, we can only outsmart them. I noticed that although these mechanical arms attacked ferociously, their actions seem to follow some kind of preset program. Their goal is to eliminate invaders, which are us. If we can disrupt their programming, perhaps we can find a breakthrough. "Sophia, Jack, cover me," I shouted, concentrating my mind and trying to use the sight to analyze the movement trajectories of these mechanical arms and find their control center. Under the cover of Jack and Sophia's firepower, I moved carefully, avoiding the attacks of the mechanical arms. I found that all the movements of these robotic arms were complex. They were somewhat synchronized, which meant that they were most likely commanded by a central control system. If we can find this control system, we might be able to shut down these robotic arms, or at least change their attack targets. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and used my ability to be emotionally inspired by the sight to the fullest. I felt as if I were in a complex mechanical network, with countless data streams flashing through my mind. I tried hard to capture the key information and find the control system. Suddenly, I felt a strong energy wave coming from deep inside the factory. I suddenly opened my eyes and felt delighted. Found it. The control system is right there. Follow me. I pointed in the direction where the energy fluctuations came from and shouted to Jack and Sophia. However, just as we were preparing to break out, I noticed that some of the mechanical arms began to move abnormally. They no longer attacked blindly like before, but began to surround us in an organized manner and at a faster speed. An ominous premonition came over me. Could it be that Raymond has discovered our intentions? He is reprogramming the control systems, beefing up the defenses. I looked at the mechanical arms that kept attacking me. Their cold metal shells reflected the flashing lights, like the sickles wielded by the god of death. It was chilling. Sweat dripped down my forehead. The cold metal ground reflected the flashing red light, and the alarm sounded sharp and piercing, making my eardrums buzz. Damn. This is going to be a lot trickier than we expected. All around us, countless mechanical arms were like steel tentacles, wielding sharp cutters and welding guns spraying blue arcs, attacking us frantically. Aiden, Peter, Lily and I were trapped in the entrance hall of this abandoned factory, unable to move. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself down. Panic will not help. The most important thing now is to survive and complete the mission. I looked around and saw Peter crouching next to a destroyed robotic arm, studying its internal structure carefully. This guy's technical ability is unquestionable. If we can find the weaknesses of these robotic arms, we may still have a chance of survival. Lily worked nervously on her laptop, her fingers tapping rapidly on the keyboard, trying to hack into the factory's defense system. Her face was pale and her lips were tightly pursed, and she obviously felt the tremendous pressure. I closed my eyes and activated my ability, being moved by the sight. By touching an object, I can sense what it has been through, as well as the memories and emotions of the people associated with it. I put my hands on the cold metal wall, trying to get some useful information. Countless noisy fragments flooded into my mind. The roar of machines, the conversations of workers, and a control room hidden deep in the factory, with countless crisscrossing lines and flashing a faint blue light. I suddenly opened my eyes and pointed in a direction deep inside the factory. The control system is over there. If we destroy it, all these robotic arms will be useless. Peter raised his head and looked in the direction I pointed. But it must be more dangerous there. How do we get there?
Lily also stopped what she was doing. Aiden, are you sure? What if this is a trap? Her words reminded me that although my ability is powerful, it is not infallible.
I once got into danger and almost lost my life because of misjudging information. I carefully recalled the image I had just perceived, trying to distinguish between truth and falsehood. The image from the control room was clear and strong, not like a trap. Also, apart from this control room, I didn't sense any other place where I could control these robotic arms. I gritted my teeth. I'm sure this is our only hope. Trust me. Peter nodded. Okay, we believe you. Lily, can you find a way to bypass these mechanical arms?
Lily took a deep breath and started to operate the computer again. I'm trying. Aiden, can you try your ability again and see if you can find some clues about the defense system?
I closed my eyes again and placed my hand on the other robotic arm. This time, I focused my attention only on information related to the defense system. Some code snippets flashed through my mind and I immediately repeated them to Lily. Lily's eyes lit up. This is part of the defense program code. I can use it to make a jammer to temporarily paralyze part of the robotic arm. An hour later, Peter made a crew jamming device based on the code provided by Lily. We held our breath and watched Peter activate the device. After a sharp sound of electricity, some of the surrounding mechanical arms stopped working, making a clicking sound, and collapsed to the ground. Success, Lily shouted excitedly. These guys are well trained and work in perfect harmony. They are obviously not ordinary security personnel. They rushed over desperately, trying to destroy our jammers. I understand that once the jammer fails, the entire factory's defense system will be reactivated, and we will be trapped here, like a turtle in a jar. I dodged the enemy's attacks while trying to protect the jammer. Marianne and Bennett also fought bravely. Their shooting skills were accurate and every shot could knock down an enemy. But the enemy was too numerous and we gradually felt overwhelmed. Just then, my hand accidentally touched an enemy's uniform. In an instant, a strange fragment of memory flooded into my mind. The ability of being reminded of something by the scene was activated again. I saw Raymond assigning tasks in a secret meeting. With a gloomy face, he ordered his men to set a timed self-destruct program to prevent the control system from being invaded by outsiders. He even set a countdown for the explosion, and once the time was up, the entire factory would be reduced to ashes. Damn it, Raymond is a lunatic. He would rather destroy everything than allow us to gain control of the system. I immediately realized the seriousness of the situation. What we are facing now is not only the enemy's attack, but also a hidden time bomb. We must find and destroy the control system as soon as possible. Otherwise we will all die here. I looked around and tried to calm myself down. Since Raymond set the self-destruct sequence, it meant that he didn't really want to blow up the factory, at least not until he got what he wanted. Then he must have left a back door, a way to manually shut down the self-destruct program. This path is likely to be in the central control system. I glanced at the jammer. It was still working properly, but the indicator light had started flashing, and it could fail at any moment.
We don't have much time left.
Just when I was feeling desperate, my eyes fell on an inconspicuous vent on the wall. It hides in the shadows and can be easily overlooked, but I noticed that the wall around the vent was a slightly different color, like it had been repainted. Also, the size of the vent is much larger than regular vents. My intuition tells me that this might be the secret passage we are looking for. Raymond was cunning and suspicious, and he would definitely not set up the secret passage in a conspicuous place. This inconspicuous vent is more likely to be overlooked, and is more in line with his style. I immediately told Marianne and Bennett what I had discovered. B also thought it was an opportunity worth taking a chance on. We now have no choice but to take a gamble. I looked at the secret passage. The dark entrance looked like the mouth of a giant beast, waiting to swallow us. I knew time was running out, and we had to take a chance. On the other side of the passage is an unknown danger, or it may be our only way to survive. Sweat soaked my collar, and the air in the corridor was suffocatingly heavy. I stared at the closed metal door in front of me, my heart beating like a drum. That's it. The central control system is behind the door, and it is also Raymond's lair. I knew he must be waiting for us there, and this final showdown was inevitable. I quickly glanced at Lily and Peter behind me. They both had nervous looks on their faces, but their eyes were unusually determined. We have come this far, experienced countless traps and tests, and have long become each other's strongest support. We have all witnessed Raymond's madness and cruelty. He will never let us go easily, but we have no choice but to give it a try. Are you ready? I asked in a low voice. Lily nodded, her fingers swiping quickly on her tablet. The system is connected and ready to disrupt his weapons. Peter patted his bulging backpack and said, "My babies are thirsty too." He was referring to the jamming devices he had made himself, which could disrupt electronic signals and even temporarily paralyze some electronic equipment. I took a deep breath and tightened my grip on the weapon. Although Raymond's ability of being reminded of something by the scene is strong, mine is not weak either. Besides, we have the assistance of Lily and Peter, so we have a chance of winning. We carefully opened the metal door. The room was dimly lit, with only a faint blue light flickering on the central console. Raymond was standing in front of the console with his back to us, his tall figure looking particularly eerie in the dim light. You're finally here, Aiden. Raymond turned around slowly with a creepy smile on his face. I've been waiting for you. I immediately felt a strong mental pressure coming towards me. This was Raymond trying to influence my emotions by evoking emotional events. I concentrated and tried hard to resist his mental invasion, while quickly analyzing the environment in the room. The room was small, and apart from the console, there was hardly any shelter, which was a disadvantage for us. Get started, I shouted and rushed forward first. Raymond also moved. His speed was astonishingly fast, and a dagger in his hand, flashing with a cold light, pierced straight into my chest. I dodged sideways and swung my weapon back. Lily's jammer program was also activated. The lights in the room began to flicker, and Raymond's weapon system also experienced a brief malfunction. Peter's jamming equipment also worked. The room was filled with all kinds of messy electronic signals, interfering with Raymond's actions. The battle was extremely fierce, and the room was filled with the harsh sound of metal clashing. I kept analyzing Raymond's attack patterns, looking for his weaknesses. Although his ability of being moved by the scene is powerful, it also has limitations. He needs to observe the emotional changes of his opponent to attack. If the opponent's emotions do not fluctuate much, his ability will be limited. I tried hard to control my emotions and stay calm, which made Raymond's attacks fail repeatedly. With the help of Lily and Peter, I gradually gained the upper hand. Raymond's breathing began to quicken, and his movements slowed down. I know victory is just around the corner. Just as I was about to give Raymond the final blow, a shrill alarm suddenly sounded in the room. The lights on the console flickered wildly, and the entire room began to shake violently. Raymond's words exploded in my mind like a bomb. Memories implanted. Am I also an experimental subject? Absurd. But somewhere in my subconscious mind, I felt a dull pain, as if a wound that had been forcibly covered up was suddenly revealed. I looked at Raymond. He had a crazy and complacent smile on his face. It was the madness of a dying man, but also the pleasure of revenge.
I must admit that I was shaken at that moment. My identity and my understanding of the past all started to blur.
But now is not the time to worry, as the factory's self-destruction program is still counting down. I forced myself to concentrate and continue attacking the central control system. Max was covering me from side to side. He glanced at me worriedly from time to time, but I didn't respond. I had to get this over with quickly. Success. The system crashed, and the self-destruct program stopped. I let out a long sigh, but my body felt unusually heavy, and an ominous premonition came over me. I turned around suddenly, and saw Raymond holding a device that was flashing a faint blue light. The light was strange and dangerous. Not good. I wanted to warn Max, but it was too late. A bright light flashed, and my consciousness was instantly swallowed up. I don't know how long it was before I felt someone shaking my shoulders. Aiden, wake up. It was Max's voice. I tried to open my eyes, but everything in front of me was blurry, then slowly came into focus. Max's anxious face appeared in front of me. You finally woke up. Thank God. Where's Raymond? I struggled to sit up, feeling a splitting headache. He ran away. Max pointed in the direction of the factory gate. There were obvious signs of a struggle there, but he managed to escape in the end. I looked around. The factory was in a mess, and traces of the explosion were everywhere. But apart from that, there were some things that were particularly eye-catching. Strange symbols appeared on the walls, on the ground, and even on some machines and equipment. They looked like some ancient writing or some complex geometric patterns. I had never seen these symbols before. They gave off a weird aura that made me shudder. What is this? Max also noticed the symbols and frowned in confusion. I shook my head to indicate that I didn't know. My intuition tells me that these symbols are closely related to Raymond, and may also be related to my life experience. I walked up to a symbol and looked at it carefully. It seemed to be drawn with some fluorescent material, emitting a faint glow under the dim light. I tried to touch it with my hand, and a cold energy instantly spread throughout my body, making me pull my hand back sharply. This is definitely not an ordinary symbol. My heart began to beat faster, with an inexplicable mixture of excitement and fear. I realized that the device that Raymond activated before he left might do more than just make us unconscious. It seemed to unlock some deeper secrets, and these symbols were the key to unlocking the secrets. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself down. The situation is very complicated now. Raymond has escaped. The mystery of my life experience has not been solved, and these strange symbols have brought new questions. I had to sort out my thoughts and find the connections. Max looked at me. I stood up and looked around again. These symbols seemed to be telling something silently. They were like signposts pointing the way, but also like a huge trap. I have a feeling we are already caught up in a bigger conspiracy, and this is just the beginning. I have to figure this out, for myself and for everyone else who is caught up in this conspiracy. My eyes fell on a symbol in the corner of the wall. It was more complex and brighter than the other symbols. It seemed to be calling me and warning me. I walked slowly over. Consciousness came flooding back like a tide, accompanied by a sharp tinnitus. I opened my eyes, and my blurry vision gradually focused on the cold concrete ceiling. Rusty pipes hung overhead, and the dim lights cast a hazy shadow on the interior of the factory. I struggled to sit up, and a dull pain in the back of my head made me gasp. Raymond's words echoed in my mind like a thunderbolt. He said I was an experimental subject. This absurd idea is hard for me to believe, but it is strangely consistent with the strange things that have happened in recent days. I looked around and saw that the walls were covered with strange symbols, like some kind of ancient writing, giving off an unsettling aura. These symbols may be the key to unlocking the mystery of my life. I have to figure this all out. Peter and Lily also woke up one after another. Like me, they were confused by the scene before them. We exchanged glances and both understood that things were far more complicated than we had imagined. These symbols look like some kind of code. Lily frowned and gently stroked the marks on the wall with her fingers. She has always been thoughtful and analytical, and is the brains of our team. I believe that if anyone can decipher these symbols, it must be her. I'll try to find a similar pattern on the internet, Lily said, taking out a laptop from her backpack and typing quickly on the keyboard with her slender fingers. Peter analyzes these symbols from an engineering perspective. Their arrangement is very regular, unlike random doodles. You see, the thickness and angle of these lines are like marks on some engineering drawings. Peter's professional ability is unquestionable, and his analysis provides us with new ideas. I studied the symbols, trying to search my mind for any relevant fragments of memory, but there was nothing but blankness. I felt a sense of defeat, as if a fog had shrouded my past, preventing me from reaching the truth. As time passed, Lily's expression became more and more serious. I searched every database I could think of, and couldn't find any matching patterns. These symbols, it's like they appeared out of thin air. Peter also shook his head. I don't see any clues either. The combination of these symbols is too complicated. It is difficult to decipher it with existing technology. Just when we were at a loss, there was a loud bang suddenly coming from the factory gate. We immediately became alert and realized that danger was approaching. Someone is coming, I growled, quickly picked up the iron rod beside me, and prepared for battle. Lily and Peter also each found tools to defend themselves. The door was pushed open and a group of men in black filed in, holding a variety of weapons in their hands. They are well trained and act quickly, and they are obviously professional killers. Damn it. It's someone from the organization, I cursed inwardly, with anger rising in my heart. It seems they still won't let us go. A fierce battle is inevitable. We stood back to back, forming a defensive formation, and fought a desperate battle with the men in black. Although we tried our best to resist, We were outnumbered and gradually fell into the disadvantage. There was a deep cut on my left arm, and blood was flowing down my arm. Lily's leg was also injured, and she had difficulty moving. Peter was thrown to the ground by a man in black and lost consciousness. Are we going to die here? Despair began to spread. At this critical moment, an old and loud voice suddenly sounded. Stop. A tall old man in a black windbreaker appeared at the factory gate. He was leaning on a cane. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle, and a powerful aura emanated from him. Who are you? A man in black asked vigilantly. The old man smiled slightly and said calmly, but with unquestionable dignity, I am James Clark. The moment James fell, my heart sank to the bottom. The force came too fast, and too strangely, like an invisible shockwave, hitting him directly. I rushed forward and checked his pulse and breathing. Fortunately, he was still alive, just unconscious. I quickly glanced around. The room was empty. The windows were closed, and there was no sign of intrusion. What is going on? What force attacked James? Could it be the organization? They discovered James's betrayal, so they sent people to silence him. The thought gives me chills. I looked around the room, my eyes landing on the symbols on the wall. These are the symbols that James tried his best to decipher, and they are also what he had been studying before he fell into a coma. Could it be that the symbol itself contains some kind of power? Or is it that the act of cracking the symbols triggers some mechanism? My mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. James is the only person who knows the inside story at the moment. He is in a coma, and the work of cracking the symbols has come to a standstill. The emergence of that mysterious force made me realize that the enemy we are facing is far more powerful and mysterious than I imagined. If he continued to crack the symbols according to James's method, would he trigger that power again and put himself in danger? I have to make a judgment. Who can be trusted in the current situation? Apart from the unconscious James, I was alone and helpless. The shadow of the organization hangs over everything, and I don't even know if there are any of their eyes around me. To be prudent, I must assume that anyone could be an enemy, until they are proven to be reliable. I carefully examined James's body and found no signs of trauma or poisoning. I helped him to the bed and gave him some simple treatment using the first aid kit in the room. Next, I need to think about how to deal with the current predicament. First, I had to ensure my own safety. I checked the doors and windows of the room to make sure they were locked. Then I carefully searched all the places in the room where eavesdropping devices or cameras might be hidden. Although I don't know if this will be effective, it at least makes me feel a little more at ease. Second, I needed to figure out what force was attacking James. This power is so strange that I can't help but wonder if it is related to the experiment 20 years ago. If this is the case, then the danger of cracking the symbols is even higher. I looked at the symbol on the wall again. Before he fell into a coma, James had been studying the arrangements and combinations of these symbols. He believed that these symbols might be a coded language that contained key information about the experiment. He once mentioned a keyword, key. He said that finding this key would unlock the secret of the symbol. But what exactly is this key? James didn't have time to tell me. I am now like a traveler lost in a maze, with only a torn map in my hand, and the guide who was showing me the direction suddenly fell down. I realized that continuing in James's direction could be very dangerous. That mysterious power was like the sword of Damocles hanging over my head, ready to fall at any time. I have to find another way and a new breakthrough. I began to re-examine all the known clues. The experiment 20 years ago, the mysterious symbols, the unconscious James, and the unknown force. There must be some connection between these clues. I flipped through James's notes, hoping to find some new insights. The notes were filled with various symbols and formulas, which made me dizzy. Suddenly, I noticed a circled date on the last page of the notebook, July 5th. What is the special significance of this date? I tried to remember anything about this date, July 15th, 1998. A flash of inspiration came to my mind. Isn't this date the day when the experiment officially begins? I looked at the unconscious James and knew I couldn't wait any longer. I decided to change direction. James's face was pale, and his breathing was weak, like an oil lamp that could go out at any time. I paced back and forth anxiously, the uneasiness in my heart, like a creeping vine tightly entangling me. It was obviously not feasible to continue to pursue clues about the experimental subject itself. We were like being caught in a huge spider web, hitting a wall everywhere. I had to go in another direction, a more hidden path, closer to the core. My mind immediately went to Richard White, the old chap who worked in the police records room. He was well informed, cautious, and vaguely supportive of Jack and my investigation. I think he's trustworthy, at least for now. If anyone knew the transport route for the experimental subjects, it must be him. After calling Richard, I briefly explained the situation, omitting the fact that James was unconscious and emphasizing only the urgency of the investigation. Richard was silent for a moment on the other end of the phone. I could hear his slightly heavy breathing, as if he was weighing something. Finally, he gave me a name, Robert Johnson, a marginal figure who had been involved in the transportation of experimental subjects. This man is not easy to find, Aiden. He is like a frightened rabbit, always hiding here and there. Richard's voice was low and hoarse. Besides, you have to be careful. There may be spies in the police station. His last words sent a chill through my spine. Eyeliner? Who is it? The thought sent chills down my spine. I must be more careful. Otherwise we will all be in danger. With Robert Johnson as a clue, Jack and I immediately took action. We looked through a lot of old files and investigation records, and finally found the pseudonym and address Robert had used in a long-forgotten warehouse register. It was an abandoned factory located on the edge of the city, surrounded by weeds and filled with a pungent smell of chemicals. We approached cautiously, observing our surroundings. The factory gate was closed and the windows were boarded up, but some subtle signs showed that someone had been active here recently. Robert is still here. We broke in and found the factory was dark and damp, with the air filled with the smell of dust. In the corner we find Robert Johnson. He curled up on the shabby sofa, his hair disheveled, his beard untidy, his eyes full of vigilance and fear. I stated my purpose straight away and assured him that we would keep him safe. Robert didn't trust us at first. His eyes flickered, as if he was judging the truthfulness of our words. I told him what we knew about the experiment and that we were tracking down who was behind it. I observed his reaction. His pupils contracted slightly and his breathing became rapid. He knows what we are talking about. After a long tug of war, Robert finally spoke. He recounted his experience of participating in the transportation of experimental subjects and some inside information he knew in a disjointed manner. He mentioned a mysterious organization and how they controlled and used these experimental subjects. Just as we were about to get more information from Robert, he suddenly stopped, stared behind me, and said with trembling lips, She's coming." My heart sank suddenly, and a chill ran from the soles of my feet to the top of my head. Richard's words echoed in my ears. "There are spies in the police station. Who is it? Who betrayed us?" I turned around slowly. A strong sense of uneasiness enveloped me. My heart was pounding and sweat was soaking through my collar. Emily, the woman I once trusted, was now standing outside the encirclement with a cold smile on her face. Damn it. She is actually a member of the organization. I quickly looked around and saw at least 30 fully armed guys, all with unfriendly faces and guns pointed at us. We were trapped in an abandoned warehouse with the only exit blocked. Robert, the coward who held key transportation route information, was huddled in the corner, trembling. His terrified eyes switched back and forth between me, Lily, and Aiden. It was obvious that he could not be counted on to provide any help. Aiden gritted his teeth and cursed under his breath. He is much calmer and more decisive than I am. I knew he was assessing the situation and considering the possibility of a breakout. We must protect Robert. Only by prying information out of him can we completely destroy this organization. Lily's fingers were typing away on her laptop, complex codes jumping across the screen. She is the most skilled hacker on our team, and our only hope at this moment. Something's happening, she suddenly said, with a hint of excitement in her tone. There are abnormal fluctuations in the internal system of the organization. It looks like an internal conflict among the top leaders. Aiden's eyes lit up and he immediately realized what this meant. Internal strife? Great. This could be our chance, he quickly analyzed. Their attention is distracted by the internal struggle, and their security forces will inevitably slacken. We can take advantage of the chaos to break out. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself down. Lily's news was undoubtedly a shot in the arm, but the situation was still very critical. We have no idea of the extent of the organizational infighting, its duration, or the consequences it will lead to. If you act rashly, you may end up in a more dangerous situation. Lily, can you determine the scale and scope of the infighting? I asked, keeping my tone as calm as possible. I'm tracking the flow of data, trying to locate the core of the conflict. Lily stared at the screen intently. I can't determine the specific situation yet, but what is certain is that this internal conflict involves senior officials, and the impact is not small. Aiden walked up to Robert and grabbed him by the collar. Listen, Robert, he said in a cold tone. You are well aware of the current situation. We must cooperate to survive. Tell me the transportation route, and I promise to take you away safely. Robert nodded tremblingly. I was secretly alert in my heart. This guy looked like a bad guy. Even if he told me the information, it might not be true. We must make multiple preparations. Aiden turned to look at Lily and me. We will split into 2 groups. Lily, you continue to track the dynamics within the organization and look for the best time to break out. Anna and I will be responsible for taking Robert out. Remember, safety is the most important thing. I nodded and tightened my grip on the weapon. I know that the next action will be extremely dangerous, and if I am not careful, I will be doomed, but I have no choice. In order to complete the mission and to survive, I must try my best. Lily took a deep breath and continued to fly her fingers on the keyboard. I'll try my best, she said, with a determined gleam in her eyes. The gunfire outside the warehouse became more and more frequent, and the chaos within the organization gradually intensified. I looked at the enemies surrounding us, and the codes constantly jumping on the screen, and an inexplicable sense of tension came over me. Who will be the winner in this breakout battle? Can we escape successfully and get the key information from Robert? Everything is still unknown. The sounds of gunfire, shouting, and explosions mixed together and were deafening. I looked around. The organization's security personnel pounced on us like mad beasts, while our own people, at least they used to be, were in chaos. Some were resisting, some were running away, and some were even pointing guns at their former companions. Chaos. Absolute chaos. This is exactly what I need. Lily's face was pale, but her eyes were firm. Peter kept wiping the sweat from his forehead, his hands trembling slightly due to nervousness. Robert, the experimental subject we rescued, huddled behind me, trembling. I have to get them out of here as soon as possible. I quickly analyzed the current situation. The organization's firepower is very strong, and a head-on confrontation will definitely not work. Lily's electronic jamming technology is a major advantage we can continue to exploit. Peter's gadgets can come in handy too. The chance to escape lies in this chaos. Lily, continue to interfere with their communications. Peter, create smoke. I shouted the order, my voice almost drowned out by the surrounding noise. Lily nodded, her fingers typing quickly on the keyboard. Peter took out a few metal balls, pulled the fuse and threw them out. Thick smoke quickly spread, obscuring the enemy's vision. I pulled Robert up and shouted to Lily and Peter, "Follow me." We took advantage of the cover of smoke and ran in the designated direction. Bullets whizzed around us and I felt death passing by us. But we couldn't stop. When I ran to the designated evacuation point, an inconspicuous truck was already waiting there. We quickly got in the car, started it, and sped away. Once we were safe, I began to interrogate Robert. Robert told us intermittently that a person named Carol White was keeping the relevant documents of the experimental subjects, which might reveal more about the truth of the experiment 20 years ago and my life experience. Carol White. I've never heard of that name, but in order to find out my own background and unlock the secret of the experiment 20 years ago, I must find her. Based on the clues provided by Robert, we finally found Carol after several twists and turns. She lives alone in an old apartment and is extremely vigilant. She was hostile to our presence and refused to hand over the documents no matter how we explained. I realized that taking things by force would only backfire. I need to find a breakthrough. I looked around and my eyes fell on a silver pendant that Carol carried with her. I reached out and gently touched the pendant. In an instant, countless fragments of memories flooded into my mind. I saw a young Carol who was threatened by the organization and forced to sign a confidentiality agreement, and her heart was filled with fear and despair. I understand she was also a victim of the organization. I took my hand back and looked at Carol. I know you are afraid, and I also know what you have suffered, but I promise you that I will keep you safe. Those documents are very important to me. They are related to my life experience, and also to more experimental subjects like Robert. Carol looked at me. "This is what you wanted." Her voice trembled. I took the file bag and thanked her solemnly. I know that this document bag contains the key to uncovering the truth. Back in the car, I couldn't wait to open the document bag. The documents inside are very thick, recording a large amount of experimental data and observation reports. I flipped through the pages quickly, and a familiar name caught my eye. My breathing stagnated and an ominous feeling came over me. My heart was beating so fast it felt like it was going to jump out of my chest. The information on the file spun rapidly in my mind like fragments, piecing together a disturbing picture. Aiden, my friend, turned out to be an experimental subject. And this old man named George Green suddenly appeared like a ghost, claiming to hold the key to all secrets. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself down. George Green's appearance was too abrupt. What was his motive? Do they really want to help us, or do they have other purposes? I secretly observed his expression. There was an elusive light flashing in his cloudy eyes, making it impossible for me to judge his true intentions. Lily looked even more nervous than I was. She clutched the documents so tightly that her knuckles turned white. I know she must be worried about Aiden at this moment. After all, they grew up together, and this friendship is more precious than anything else. As for Aiden, he looked unusually calm, as if all this had nothing to do with him. But beneath this calm, I felt a repressed pain and a despair that was pushed to the brink of a cliff by the truth. "Mr. Green," I began, trying to keep my tone calm. "You said you knew a lot of secrets, so what do you want from us?" George Green smiled, but there was no warmth in that smile, which instead made people feel creepy. "Young man, I admire your directness," he said slowly. "I do know a lot of secrets, enough to solve all your doubts. However, there is no free lunch in the world, and I need you to do something for me." My heart sank. As expected, he had conditions. I looked at Lily and Aiden, and they were looking at me, their eyes full of questions and anxiety. We are now faced with a difficult choice. If we agree to him, we may be able to uncover the truth, but we may also fall into greater danger. If we refuse him, we may lose our only chance and be trapped in the fog forever. I quickly weighed the pros and cons. Although George Green's presence is suspicious, the information he holds is vital to us. The experiments mentioned in the document and the masterminds behind them are all closely related to Aiden's fate. If we can figure that out, maybe we can help Aiden out. Moreover, we are not completely without bargaining chips. The documents in our hands are our bargaining chips.
What's the matter? I asked, trying my best to sound neither humble nor arrogant.
George Green did not answer immediately. He walked to the window and, with his back to us, looked out into the night. The room was silent, with only the ticking sound of the old-fashioned wall clock, as if urging us to make a decision. "This is a risky business," George Green finally spoke, his voice low and hoarse. "But I promise that once you finish, I will tell you everything I know." My palms began to sweat, and an inexplicable feeling of tension enveloped me. I don't know what conditions he will propose, nor do I know what dangers are hidden behind this, but I vaguely felt that this would be a moment that changed our destiny. Lily tugged at the corner of my clothes, her eyes full of worry. I patted her hand gently to reassure her. "No matter what, we have to face it together." Aiden remained silent, but his clenched fists revealed his inner struggle. I know that this condition means a lot to him because he wants to know the truth more than anyone else. George Green slowly turned around. His eyes swept over each of us sharply. Then he slowly opened his mouth and stated his conditions. My breathing stopped and my mind went blank. This condition was far beyond our imagination. It was like a huge rock, pressing heavily on our hearts and making us feel suffocated. We looked at each other in bewilderment, looking forward to the truth being revealed, and nervous about the unknown challenges that were about to come. My heart was pounding like a drum. George Green, the key figure who holds all the secrets, finally gave in, but the conditions he proposed were like a sword hanging over my head, making me feel both excited and fearful. I took a deep breath, tried to keep myself calm, and said, "Mr. Green, what are your conditions?" There was no expression on Green's face, and his deep eyes seemed to be able to see through everything. "I want you to go to the hive and retrieve the nightingale." Honeycomb?
Nightingale.
These two words are completely unfamiliar to me. My companions, Lily and Mark, also looked puzzled. We exchanged glances and saw the same uneasiness in each other's eyes. Green seemed to see our confusion and added, "The beehive is a secret base of the organization and is heavily guarded. The nightingale is an item of vital importance to the organization. I cannot tell you what it is specifically." Lily frowned and whispered, "This is too dangerous. We know nothing about the beehive. This is tantamount to suicide." Mark also agreed. He has always been cautious and would not take risks easily. I understand their concerns. After all, we are facing a huge and mysterious organization. But if we give up this opportunity, we may never learn the truth and avenge our dead companions. I carefully weighed the pros and cons. Although Green is insidious and cunning, he has not directly harmed us so far, and the information he possesses is vital to us. If he really wanted to kill us, there would be no need to do this. I think the conditions he proposed are dangerous, but not impossible to achieve. More importantly, this is our only chance. I made up my mind and said to Lily and Mark, "I know this is dangerous, but we have no choice. For the truth and for revenge, we must take the risk." Lily and Mark were silent for a moment, and finally nodded. They also understand that there is no other way but to trust Green. We began to ask for detailed information about the beehive, and Green provided as much help as possible, including its location, guard situation, and some sneaking techniques. We carefully noted down every detail and developed a preliminary action plan. Just as we were getting ready to set off, a strong sense of crisis suddenly overwhelmed me. I turned around suddenly and saw a tall and burly figure appear at the door. He was wearing a black suit, his eyes were cold, and he held a dagger that was shining with cold light in his hand. It was Henry Thompson, a senior assassin of the organization, known for his agility and ruthlessness. I realized immediately that we were exposed. "It seems that you have made your choice." Henry's voice was low and murderous. Unfortunately, you have no chance. My brain was racing, thinking of strategies to deal with the situation. Henry is notoriously difficult to deal with, and we have little chance of winning in a head-on confrontation. I quickly winked at Lily and Mark, signaling them to disperse and break out. Henry obviously didn't expect us to take the initiative to attack. He was slightly stunned, then sneered, and his figure flashed, and he pounced on me like a ghost. I dodged his attack by moving sideways, while drawing my dagger and engaging him in close combat. Lily and Mark also found the targets, and fought with other members of the organization. Henry's attack was so fierce and swift that I barely had a chance to breathe. Every move he made hit my vital points, and I could only barely parry. I realized that if we continued like this, sooner or later we would be defeated one by one. I have to find a way to change the status quo. The battle was extremely fierce, and each of us tried our best. However, at this critical moment, I felt that there was a subtle change within the team. Lily's eyes and a slight movement gave me an uneasy feeling. Bullets whizzed past my ears, and a deafening explosion made my scalp tingle. Damn it. I Aiden cursed loudly and crouched behind a broken stone pillar. The strong smell of gunpowder made me cough uncontrollably, and my lungs felt like they were on fire. Jack and Sophia were still arguing. Their voices were torn apart by the sound of gunfire, but I could still hear the anxiety and uneasiness in them. I have to do something. I judge that our current situation is very dangerous. First, Henry is no ordinary man, and his fire suppression makes it difficult for us to move. Second, the organization has learned of our plan, and the defense of the stronghold must be more strict, which undoubtedly increases the difficulty of the mission. Finally, and most fatally, there are disagreements within our team, which will seriously weaken our combat effectiveness. I quickly analyzed Jack and Sophia. Jack is impulsive, but brave in combat. His proposal is not entirely unreasonable, and Henry does pose a great threat to us. Sophia pays more attention to the overall situation. She is worried that delaying time will make us miss the best opportunity. Her concerns are also worth considering. Neither of them is wrong, they just have different positions. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself down. Now is not the time to blame each other. We must find a compromise solution as soon as possible. I stuck my head out to observe the enemy situation. Henry's men occupied the advantageous terrain and had fierce firepower. A head-on confrontation would definitely not work. As for the stronghold, although the defense has been strengthened, the reconnaissance work we did before was not in vain, and there is still a chance to find a breakthrough. I retracted my head and yelled to Jack and Sophia, "Stop arguing. The current situation is not favorable for us. We must think of a way to have the best of both worlds." Jack and Sophia stopped arguing, and both looked at me. I continued, "Jack, take 2 people to contain Henry, and try to delay him as much as possible. But don't fight hard, and focus on conserving your strength. Sophia, you and I will take the rest of the people, and go to the base as planned. We will use the intelligence we have previously scouted to find weak points and make breakthroughs." The reason why I made such an arrangement is because I believe in Jack's fighting ability. He has the ability to hold back Henry, and tying down Henry can also buy time for us to reach the stronghold. At the same time, I also believe in Sophia's judgment and leadership ability. She can lead us to find breakthroughs and complete the task. Jack and Sophia both nodded, indicating that they agreed with my plan. I felt a little relieved that at least we were united again. Remember, I emphasized again, our primary goal is to complete the mission and come back alive. Be careful. We quickly split up, with Jack taking 2 men to make a detour in Henry's direction to draw fire. Sophia and I led the rest of the group and sneaked towards the secret base. Along the way, we encountered several waves of patrols, but we successfully avoided them with tacit cooperation and superb tactics. As we got closer to the base, my uneasiness grew stronger. The defense of the stronghold was tighter than we expected, Heavy machine guns were mounted on the towering walls. Searchlights were constantly scanning the surroundings, and the frequency of patrols had also increased significantly. I observed my surroundings and tried to find a breakthrough. The wall is very high, so a forced attack is not possible. We must find a hidden entrance. I noticed that there was a dense forest in the southeast corner of the wall. The light there was dim, and the vision was limited, so I might be able to sneak in from there. I told Sophia my idea, and after careful observation, she also thought that that was the best breakthrough point. We decided to take a chance. We approached the woods cautiously, trying not to make any noise. Just as we were about to reach the edge of the woods, I suddenly felt a chill in my heart, and a sense of foreboding arose. I suddenly raised my head and looked towards the base, only to see a red flare suddenly rising in the dark night sky. Aiden looked at the increasingly serious situation, and knew that he could not delay any longer. The cold wind blew across my cheeks, bringing a biting chill and making me more awake. The intelligence Lucy provided shows that the power of the traitor Henry Thompson is expanding rapidly. If we don't act now, I'm afraid we will really have no chance. I glanced at my friends around me. Peter was still depressed about the quarrel just now, and Sarah was looking at me worriedly. Her eyes were full of questions and uneasiness, as if asking me what to do next. I knew I had to make a decision quickly. We must put our internal conflicts aside for the time being, and the most important thing is to overcome the current difficulties.
Lucy Ross, this mysterious woman, has only joined us recently, but the intelligence she has demonstrated is shocking.
She provided us with preliminary information about the secret base, an abandoned military factory that was easy to defend but difficult to attack. I pondered the information Lucy had provided, trying to find loopholes in it. Who is she? Why should she help us? What is her motive? These questions have been lingering in my mind and cannot be shaken off. But I don't have time to dwell on this now. I have to choose to believe her, at least for now. We followed the route provided by Lucy and arrived near the military factory. The towering chimneys, rusty iron gates, and dilapidated factory buildings looked particularly eerie in the night. I took a deep breath and tried to keep myself calm. I reached out my hand, touched the cold iron door, closed my eyes, and concentrated. Sights evoke emotions. My special ability allows me to trace back what happened here in the past by touching objects and perceive the sights, sounds, and even emotions that once existed here. I saw the soldiers busy at work here, heard the roar of machines, and felt the fear and despair brought by the war. More importantly, I saw how the traps were set up. Infrared sensors, pressure-triggered traps, and even poison gas devices. The enemy is more cautious than we thought. I opened my eyes and told my companions the distribution of traps I had seen. There are traps here and here. Everyone must be careful. I pointed to several key locations and reminded everyone again. Peter's expression softened a little, and he nodded to show that he understood. Sarah also listened carefully. We advanced cautiously, trying to avoid the traps I sensed. However, the accident still happened. When Peter stepped over a seemingly safe threshold, he triggered a pressure plate hidden under the floor. With a light click sound, a row of sharp spikes fell from the ceiling. "Peter," Sarah exclaimed. I reacted quickly and pushed Peter away, and the spikes scraped his clothes and fell, pinning him to the ground. That was a close call. I immediately closed my eyes, activated the scenery effect again, and touched the wall next to me. I need to find a mechanism to deactivate the trap. The scene quickly went back, and I saw a man in military uniform debugging a trap. He pressed a button hidden in the crack of the wall. I opened my eyes, found the button, and pressed it hard. With a buzzing sound, the spikes slowly retracted into the ceiling. "Well done, Aiden." Peter patted his chest with lingering fear. The passage was partially damaged by fallen spikes, but Peter used his engineering skills to quickly repair the passage, allowing us to continue moving forward. As we went deeper, the air smelled of dampness and decay. My ability to evoke emotions through sight tells me that a fierce battle had taken place here and the air was filled with the smell of death. I felt an inexplicable uneasiness, as if something was approaching us. Just then, a familiar sound of footsteps came from the air, steady and powerful, approaching us quickly. My heart sank suddenly, and an ominous premonition came over me. Sweat stung my eyes and my breath burned in my lungs. Henry Thompson, this guy, as difficult to deal with as a mad dog, once again stood in front of us. He swung the sharp blade in his hand tightly, and each attack was deadly. I must admit, he is a tough opponent. My brain was working rapidly, analyzing the situation. Henry's speed and strength are far beyond that of ordinary people, so a head-on confrontation is definitely not a wise move. I have to rely on my ability to be inspired by scenes to find his flaws. With every block and every dodge, I tried to capture the subtle changes in his movements and feel the trajectory of his muscles. His attack pattern gradually became clear, fierce, direct, but lacking in variety. And after each vigorous attack, there would be a brief pause. That was his time to breathe, and it was also my chance. Just as I was looking for Henry's weakness, a figure joined the battle. It's Philip Green. Alarm bells started ringing in my heart. Philip is a rebel within the organization. Is his appearance a blessing or a curse? Will he really help us, or does he have other intentions? While I was dealing with Henry, I was closely observing Philip's actions. He attacked ruthlessly, with every move directed at Henry, and seemed to be really helping us. I am still full of doubts. What was Philip's motive for betrayal? He had been hiding well before. Why did he choose to show up now? If he really wanted to help us, why didn't he do it sooner? Is it to reap the benefits while sitting back and waiting? I have to be careful and not trust anyone easily.
Aiden, I know you are doubting me, Philip shouted while dodging Henry's attack, but I can no longer tolerate what the organization has done. I know what you are looking for, and I can help you.
Philip's tone sounded very sincere, and his eyes were full of anger and helplessness. Could it be that he was really forced into a desperate situation by the organization and chose to cooperate with us? I was still hesitant in my heart, but the current situation did not allow me to think too much. Henry is pressing me, and I have to make a decision quickly. Tell me, what do you know? I growled, and dodged Henry's blow by leaning sideways. I know what you are looking for is in the control center, in the innermost room on the 3rd floor, Philip said quickly, while fending off Henry's attack. There is a special electronic lock there that requires a specific password to open. The password is... He recited a complicated combination of numbers and letters. I quickly wrote it down, but my mind was still full of doubts. This information is so important. Why would Philip tell us so easily? What exactly is his purpose? Why are you telling me this? I asked, my tone full of caution. Because I want to end it all. A trace of pain flashed across Philip's face. What the organization has done has exceeded my bottom line. I don't want to help the evil anymore. There was so much sincerity in his words, but I still couldn't fully believe him. Maybe he just wants to use us, or maybe he has other unknown purposes. Despite my doubts, I decided to take a gamble. Henry's attack was getting more and more fierce, and we had no time to hesitate. I had to trust Philip at least for now. Okay, I took a deep breath. Let's work together. Philip and I teamed up to fight Henry, and my ability to be emotionally inspired played a crucial role at this moment. I was able to anticipate Henry's every move, find his weaknesses and guide Philippe into his attacks. Under our double attack, Henry gradually lost the upper hand. Finally, we managed to repel Henry, who staggered away, clutching his wound. I turned to Philip, my eyes still full of caution. "Lead the way," I said briefly. Philip nodded and turned to walk towards the control center. I followed closely behind, my heart filled with anticipation and anxiety. Control center, the innermost room on the 3rd floor. What is hidden there? Is the information provided by Philip true or false? What kind of truth is hidden behind all this?
At the end of the corridor, the staircase leading to the third floor is hidden in the dim light, like the abyss of a giant beast, waiting for us to step in. Sweat dripped down my forehead, blurring my vision. Damn, this combination lock is more complicated than I thought. I glanced at Mark Johnson. His lips were pursed tightly. His fingers were moving rapidly on the keyboard, and complex code was pouring down the screen like a waterfall. I know he tried his best. Mark is the best hacker among us. If even he can't open it, then we have to find another way. Philip leaned against the wall, holding the rifle seized from the guard tightly in his hand, and stared at the corridor nervously. He just told us that this corridor is the only access to this room, which means that the enemy will definitely come from here. Although Philip was timid and fearful, he became the most reliable observer in this situation. After all, survival is an instinct engraved in everyone's bones. They are coming. Philip's voice trembled, but his tone was extremely firm. I took a deep breath and tightened my grip on the dagger. Now is not the time to hesitate. We must buy time and let Mark finish his work. There were hurried footsteps in the corridor, getting closer and clearer. I know Henry Thompson is coming. This old fox must have guessed our goal, so he brought people here personally. Aiden, get ready to fight. Kate's voice sounded in my ears. Her tone was calm and her eyes were firm, which gave me great confidence. Kate is the best fighter in our team. With her, we at least have the strength to fight. The first guard who rushed in was killed by me with a knife. The blood splattered on my face, warm and smelly. I didn't have time to pay attention to this because more enemies were pouring in. The room was in chaos with the sounds of gunfire, shouting, and metal colliding. I kept dodging, blocking, and counterattacking. Every move had to be precise and quick, because if I was not careful, I would pay the price with my life. I noticed that the air in the room was getting thinner and it was becoming harder to breathe. This damn organization actually set up an oxygen deficiency trap. I cursed in my mind, but my movements did not slow down at all. Mark's face became paler, and beads of sweat covered his forehead. I knew he was reaching his limit, and lack of oxygen has a greater impact on people who do mental work. Mark, how much longer? I asked loudly, trying to be heard over the sound of gunfire. Almost. Give me another minute. Mark's voice was intermittent and almost inaudible. 1 minute, damn it. Can we survive this minute? Henry Thompson finally appeared. He stood at the entrance of the corridor with a sneer on his face, as if he was sure of victory. My heart sank, knowing that we were in a desperate situation. Give up, Aiden, you can't escape. Henry Thompson's voice was full of sarcasm. I gritted my teeth, ignored him, and continued to fight the enemy. I know that even if there is little hope, we cannot give up, because we still have a mission to accomplish. Just then I felt an inexplicable chill, as if something was approaching. This feeling is very familiar, but I can't remember where I felt it before. Could this feeling... The air was filled with the smell of gunpowder and blood. My lungs felt burning, and the feeling of suffocation just now was slightly relieved. I looked at Diana with gratitude. This woman is such a treasure. She always brings surprises at critical moments. But there was no relief on her face. The enemy's firepower was too strong, and we were trapped in this room with little hope of breaking out. I quickly glanced around. Mark was still fiddling with the damn box. Emily was covering him. She was pale. The wound on her arm was still bleeding. The situation was not optimistic. Diana was looking for other exits, but her brows were furrowed, and it was obvious that the situation was not optimistic. The most difficult problem now is how to escape. The enemy outnumbers us by a huge margin, so we won't be able to defeat them head-on. Diana's skills can help us, but they can only buy us a short time, and we must find a more effective escape plan. My mind was racing, analyzing the current situation. First of all, the enemy obviously knows the purpose of our trip, so they will definitely deploy heavy troops at all exits. Secondly,
The contents of the box Mark opened were extremely important to them, which meant they would not let us go easily, and would even do whatever it took to get it back. Finally, although Diana's abilities are powerful, they are not unlimited. She needs time to recover, and we cannot rely too much on her. I had to come up with a plan, one that would get us out safely while keeping the contents of the box. I glanced at Mark. He was still concentrating on cracking the code of the box. It was obvious that he had no idea how critical the situation outside was. I had to remind him to speed up.
Mark, I yelled. Hurry up! We can't hold out much longer.
He raised his head and looked at me blankly. I gestured to him, indicating that he should hurry up. He seemed to understand what I meant and lowered his head to continue working, his fingers moving rapidly on the keyboard. At this time, Diana came over, her face solemn, and whispered, "I found a ventilation duct that leads to the outside of the building, but it is too narrow and can only accommodate one person." My heart sank. There was only one exit, and it could only accommodate one person, which meant we had to make a choice, who to leave behind and who to take with us. "What about the things in the box?" I asked. "We must take it away," Diana said firmly. "This is our only hope." I understand what she means, but it's such a difficult choice to make. I looked at Emily. Her face was pale, and her lips were chapped, but she still held the gun tightly, covering Mark. I gritted my teeth and made a difficult decision. "Mark, take your things and go first. Diana and I will cover you." Mark looked up. At this moment, Mark suddenly exclaimed, "It's open." The box slowly opened, and inside lay a sphere emitting a mysterious light. The sphere is transparent throughout, and some liquid seems to be flowing inside, emitting a faint blue light, which makes people feel an inexplicable power. We were all stunned. What is this thing? What kind of power does it possess? Why do organizations want it so badly? I felt an unprecedented uneasiness. This thing didn't seem to be as simple as we imagined. It seemed to contain some huge energy, and it might even change our destiny. We looked at the mysterious glowing items in the box and were filled with shock. The light from the thing in the box was so strange and eerie, like the eyes of some deep-sea creature, that it gave me the creeps. The organization has mobilized so many people and is willing to pay any price to get it. So this thing must be very important. I hesitated and stretched out my hand, wanting to feel the warmth of the light. But before my fingertips touched, a strong wave suddenly bounced me away, as if I was pushed hard by an invisible wall. I staggered back a few steps, looking at it with lingering fear. Lily, Ben and Jack's expressions also changed. What on earth is this thing? My brain was racing. The organization's tight defense, the mysterious light, the strong energy fluctuations. All clues point to one conclusion. This thing is extremely dangerous and extremely important. If things go wrong, it may be the key to our overthrow of the organization. Lily is worthy of being a top hacker. She immediately took out her precious tablet and started scanning the box. Her slender fingers danced rapidly across the screen, which flashed complex codes and patterns. I know that Lily is working attentively. Her calmness and concentration at this moment are the stabilizer of our team. There are results. Lily raised her head with a serious expression. This thing contains huge energy. The scan results show that its energy fluctuations are very similar to the energy characteristics of the underground laboratory at the organization's headquarters. I suspect that this thing is very likely related to the organization's core secret, Chimera Project. Chimera Project. I repeated the name in a low voice, and an ominous premonition came over me. I have heard a little about this project. It is said to be a top-secret research project. The organization has invested a lot of manpower and material resources, but no one knows the specific content. It now seems that this mysterious object may be the key to the Chimera Project. Just then, a burst of hurried footsteps were heard in the corridor, getting closer and more frequent. Oh no, It's someone from the organization. I realized immediately that we were surrounded. Lily also stopped scanning, and her expression became even uglier. Ben clenched his fists nervously, while Jack habitually put his hand on the holster at his waist. Bang! With a loud noise, the door of the room was violently slammed open. A group of armed men in black uniforms rushed in, pointing their guns at us. Henry Thompson, the organization's senior cadre, the sinister and cunning guy, stood in the back of the crowd with a sickening sneer on his face. "Aiden," he said slowly, his tone full of threats, "hand over the things, and I can consider giving you a quick death." I took a deep breath and forced myself to calm down. The situation is extremely unfavorable to us now. We are surrounded, outnumbered, and we know too little about this mysterious object. Fighting head-on will not work. We must find a way to escape. I glanced at Lily, and she shook her head slightly, signaling me not to act rashly. Ben and Jack also looked solemn, and it was obvious that they also realized the urgency of the situation. My brain raced, assessing the situation. Thompson's words are not credible. Even if we hand over the items, they will not let us go. What they want is complete silence, but we know too much. I stared at Thompson, trying to appear calm. "What do you want?" I deliberately delayed time, hoping to find a chance of turning around. "Stop talking nonsense," Thompson waved his hand impatiently. "Hand over the stuff." I glanced at the armed men around me. They were well trained and well equipped. We had no chance of winning. I have to find a way for us to escape. Jack suddenly took a step forward, and his low voice carried a hint of determination. "Let's fight. Let's get out." The air was filled with the smell of gunpowder, not only from the impending explosion, but also from the tense confrontation between us. Jack's face flushed, and his saliva almost sprayed on my face. "Break out. This is the only way now. Are you waiting to die?" I glanced at Sophia. She was holding the metal box tightly, her knuckles turning white from the force. I know that to her, the things in the box are more important than our lives. I quickly weighed the situation. Jack's recklessness is not completely unreasonable. Since the organization has activated the self-destruction program, it must have made full preparations. We don't have much time left. Sophia's concerns are reasonable. If the things in the box are damaged, all our previous efforts will be wasted. Damn it. Whose judgment should I trust? I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself down. Although Jack is impulsive, at this critical moment of life and death, his survival instinct may help us find a glimmer of hope. As for Sophia, her obsession with the box was bordering on paranoia. I suspected that she would even abandon us in a critical moment to keep the box. This made me distrust her a little. "Jack, you said break out. Do you know how to break out? How many people are outside and what the firepower configuration is like? Do you know?" I stared into his eyes, trying to catch a trace of panic or hesitation. Jack was stunned for a moment, his eyes flickering. I saw them entering from the east side, where the defense is relatively weak. His tone was not firm enough, which made me more suspicious that he was just bluffing. But I had no choice but to take a gamble. "Okay, we'll break out from the east. Sophia, you have to follow us closely. If the box is damaged, none of us will survive." I deliberately emphasized my tone, which was both a warning and a reminder. Sophia bit her lip and nodded. "Now we need a specific plan." I looked around. The room began to shake violently. Stones kept falling from the walls, and the lights above my head began to flicker. The shadow of death loomed over us. "Jack, you lead the way, Sophia stays in the middle, and I'll cover the rear. Remember, our goal is to get out alive, so put everything else aside for now." I forced myself to ignore my inner fear and pretend to be confident. I knew I had to stay calm to lead them out. We started to act according to the plan. Jack picked up a handful of fallen steel bars and walked carefully towards the east wall. A crack appeared in the wall, and as the shaking grew stronger, The crack widened. "Right it is," Jack yelled, pounding the crack with the steel bar. The walls collapsed. Dust flew, and gunfire rang out outside. Jack rushed out first, followed by Sophia and I. As soon as I stepped out of the room, a wave of heat hit me in the face, and a deafening explosion echoed in my ears. I felt a strong push, and my body flew forward uncontrollably. My heart was beating so hard, it seemed like it was going to jump out of my chest. An unprecedented fear swept over me, and I realized that death was so close to me. I felt like a fallen leaf, swaying in the wind, and could be torn to pieces at any time. I tried desperately to grab onto something, but I couldn't grab onto anything. This feeling of helplessness almost suffocated me. The room shook violently, and a teeth-grinding sound of metal twisting came from overhead. Dust and debris fell like rain, and I instinctively hugged my head and curled up in a corner. The shadow of death loomed over me. My heart was pounding, and fear surged like a tide. I forced myself to calm down, now afraid that this wouldn't solve anything. I had to live. For Peter, for Catherine, and for myself. I looked around and saw Peter, his face pale, holding my arm tightly, his eyes full of fear. Catherine was relatively calm. She looked around vigilantly, as if looking for an escape route. I realized that we had to get out of here as soon as possible, otherwise we would be buried alive. At this moment, I felt a strange feeling. My ability to be moved by scenes seemed to be stimulated by the fear of dying, and became stronger than ever before. I can clearly feel the history and energy of the objects around me, and they seem to be telling me their own stories. The cracks in the walls, the scratches on the floor, and even the dust floating in the air, all emit a unique energy fluctuation. My eyes fell on some dust-covered pipes in the corner of the room. I touched their history. These pipes were not ordinary ventilation ducts, but special channels connected to the outside of the building, used to transport some kind of liquid, emitting weak energy fluctuations. I immediately realized that this was an opportunity. "Peter," I said, lowering my voice, pointing at the pipes. "See those pipes? Destroy them. Release whatever's inside." Peter was stunned for a moment, obviously not understanding my intention. "Aiden, this is no time to joke around. We have to find a way to escape. Believe me, Peter. This is our only hope," I said in a firm tone, leaving no room for doubt. I knew it was risky, but my instinct told me it was our only chance of survival. Peter hesitated for a moment, but finally chose to believe me. He took a deep breath, pulled out tools from his waist, and began to destroy the pipes. I kept a close eye on Catherine to make sure she was safe. As Peter moved, a thick white smoke gushed out of the pipe and quickly filled the entire room. I knew that the smoke was likely to have some special effect, which would create confusion and give us a chance to escape. Sure enough, after the smoke spread, there were coughing and screams from the corridor outside. The originally strict guards suddenly fell into chaos. They obviously did not expect such a situation to happen. "Now," I yelled, pulling Peter and Catherine out of the room. The corridor was in chaos, with members of the organization running around in the smoke, unable to see the direction at all. We took advantage of the chaos to rush into the crowd, and engaged in a fierce fight with them. Using my ability of evoked emotions by the scene, I was able to predict their attacks and react quickly. Just then, a familiar figure appeared in front of me. Henry Thompson. He is like a beast. "Hayden, you can't escape," he roared and rushed towards me. Henry's attacks were swift, his fists were whistling, and he was full of ferocity. I dare not confront him head-on. After all, the ability of being reminded of something by a scene does not make me invulnerable, but it allows me to analyze my opponent more quickly. I have to stay calm and find his flaws. Henry is used to punching hard with his right hand, with his left foot in front, a brief pause before attacking, and his defensive focus is on the right. These subtle habits become fatal weaknesses in the fight between life and death. I pretended to be defeated and fought while retreating, intentionally leading him into a narrow passage deep in the warehouse. The place was filled with discarded wooden boxes and iron racks, and the space was cramped, which was not conducive to his exerting his strength. Henry was fooled and thought he had won. He put on a ferocious smile and pressed forward step by step. Just as he rushed into the passage, I seized the opportunity, dodged his heavy punch by turning sideways, and kicked the knee of his supporting leg at the same time. With a crack and a scream from Henry, his huge body fell to the ground. I didn't dare to take it lightly. After all, he was a master in the organization. I quickly stepped forward and controlled him firmly with the iron pipe I picked up from the ground. At this moment, Philip suddenly shouted, "There is a secret passage here. Follow me." My heart trembled, and I turned to look at Philip. He was standing in the corner of the warehouse, pointing at an inconspicuous secret door on the wall. Secret passage? This is too sudden. Several thoughts quickly ran through my mind. Is Philip a friend or an enemy? Is this secret passage a trap or a real escape route? Does the organization know about this secret passage? Philip looked anxious and didn't seem to be faking it. Besides, if he was a member of the organization, there would be no need to expose this secret passage. He could just wait for Henry to kill us. Moreover, from the time we were being hunted until now, Philip has always been on our side. Comprehensive judgment. The current situation is that we have been targeted by the organization, and staying here will only lead to death. Instead of waiting to die, it is better to take a gamble and follow Philip into the secret passage. Maybe there is still a glimmer of hope. As for what dangers there are in the secret passage, we can only take it one step at a time and see. I winked at Emily, telling her to keep an eye on Henry, and then I quickly ran over to Philip. The secret door was very heavy. Philip pushed it open with great effort, and a musty smell hit him in the face. My heart skipped a beat. I wondered how long it had been since anyone had walked through this secret passage. What could be inside? Are there any other dangers? But there was no way out now. I took a deep breath and said to Emily, "Tie him up and let's go." Emily quickly tied Henry up tightly with a rope and followed us into the secret passage. Philip walked in front. With the faint light, I saw that the secret passage was very narrow, only accommodating one person. The walls were damp and covered with moss, and the air was filled with a disgusting musty smell. My heart was in my throat. Where did this secret passage lead to? What awaits us ahead is hope or deeper despair? The air in the corridor was so humid that it seemed like water could be wrung out of it. The musty smell mixed with the pungent odor of some chemical made me almost nauseous. Philip walked in front with a flashlight. His back looked particularly thin in the flickering light, as if he would be swallowed by the darkness at any time. I followed closely behind him, with Lily and Emily at the end. I clenched the gun in my hand, my nerves tense. Philip's betrayal came too sudden. Although he claimed to take us to the core area of the organization and expose their conspiracy, I still couldn't fully trust him. He had proposed this secret passage, so who knows if it was another trap. I have to stay alert and be ready for any emergency. Emily obviously had the same doubts as I did. She held Lily's arm tightly. Lily was relatively calm. From time to time, she shone a flashlight on the walls on both sides of the passage, as if looking for something. These symbols. Lily suddenly stopped and pointed at some strange patterns on the wall. I have seen similar symbols in the organization's archives before. They should be related to the organization's core secret eternal life plan. Eternal life plan? I repeated in a low voice, my heart full of doubts. I had never heard of this plan. The organization's confidentiality work was watertight. Even a core member like me only knew the tip of the iceberg. Yes, Lily nodded affirmatively. These symbols are likely a special code used to record and transmit information related to the Eternal Life Project. If we can decipher these symbols, Perhaps we can uncover the true face of the organization. Lily's words gave me hope, but also deepened my doubts. Why did Philip betray the organization and bring us here? What is his purpose? Is he really trustworthy? While thinking about these questions, I was vigilantly observing my surroundings. Suddenly, a burst of hurried footsteps came from the back of the passage, accompanied by a few vague shouts. My heart sank suddenly, and an ominous premonition came over me. "They're coming," Emily exclaimed. Philip turned around abruptly, his face becoming extremely ugly. "Damn it, Henry Thompson. He must have spotted us." Henry Thompson is the organization's security chief, a ruthless and merciless character. I have dealt with him several times and know how powerful he is. If we fall into his hands, we will definitely be in trouble.
We have to speed up. I made a prompt decision. Lily, continue to study those symbols to see if you can find other clues. Philip, lead the way.
Philip nodded and quickened his pace, the beam of his flashlight swaying more violently in the passage. The footsteps behind me were getting closer, and the shouts were becoming clearer. I could feel that Henry Thompson's pursuers were approaching step by step. I took a deep breath and tried to keep myself calm. The current situation is very unfavorable for us. The passage is narrow and easy to defend, but difficult to attack. It is easy for us to be trapped here. I had to find a way to use the terrain of the passage to delay time as much as possible, and buy Lily more time to decipher those symbols. I began to carefully observe the structure of the passage, looking for areas that could be used. The walls on both sides of the passage are uneven, and some places even form natural shelters. There were also some rubble and debris scattered on the ground of the passage, which might be used to set traps. My brain was working rapidly, evaluating various possibilities, and a plan gradually took shape in my mind. The footsteps behind were getting closer and closer, and I could even hear their heavy breathing. Time is running out. I have to make a decision quickly. Sweat dripped down my forehead, blurring my vision. At the end of the passage, the huge stone door was like a natural moat, blocking our hope of escape. My heart was pounding, my lungs were on fire, and I was exhausted from the long hours of running and fighting. I quickly glanced behind me and saw Henry and his men approaching like hyenas smelling blood. Their numbers were growing, and their firepower was getting stronger. The crude traps we set up were simply unable to effectively stop them for long. I knew in my heart that if we couldn't open this stone door as soon as possible, we would be caught in their trap. Damn it. Amy cursed under her breath and pounded on the stone door. What the hell is this? I forced myself to calm down. Panic will not solve any problems. It will only accelerate our demise. I carefully observed the mechanism on the stone door. It was composed of countless gears, sliders, and symbols, and was so complicated that it made my scalp numb. Although I have some knowledge of mechanics, I have never seen such a complicated mechanism. I judge that Henry and his men are chasing us relentlessly because of the items in our hands. This thing is vital to the organization, and they are determined to get it back at all costs. The existence of this stone door indicates that there may be some secrets hidden at the end of this passage, perhaps another base of the organization, or perhaps an escape route. We have to find a way to open it no matter what. I turned to look at the rest of the team. Amy and John both looked anxious. They knew nothing about the mechanism and could only worry. And Kate, our blasting expert, was looking at the stone gate from a professional perspective, as if looking for a weak point that could be blasted. Kate's actions made my heart tighten. Explosions can certainly open the stone door, but the noise is too loud and will inevitably attract more members of the organization. Moreover, if there is some kind of self-destruct device behind the stone door, we will all be blown to pieces. I have to stop her. Kate, wait. I called her. Explosion is too risky. We have to find another way. Kate was a little impatient. We don't have time, Aiden. Those guys behind us will catch up soon. I knew she was right. Time was running out. But I believe that since this stone door has a mechanism, there must be a way to open it. I focused my attention on the stone gate again. There must be some kind of pattern hidden in those gears, sliders and symbols. I began trying to move some sliders and turn some gears, but the stone gate wouldn't budge. I felt frustrated. Was there really no other way? At this time, I noticed a line of small words under the stone gate. Because of the dim light, I had not noticed it before. I squatted down and carefully read the small words. It was an ancient script that I didn't recognize, but for some reason it felt familiar to me. I tried to remember where I had seen this kind of words. Suddenly, an image flashed through my mind. It was an ancient book that my father showed me when I was a child. I raised my head suddenly, and a glimmer of hope surged in my heart. If I remember correctly, that text is an ancient code, and the key to deciphering the code lies in... My thoughts came to an abrupt halt, and my eyes were fixed on an inconspicuous symbol on the stone gate. My breathing became rapid, and a premonition came over me. But at the same time, Henry and the others were approaching the end of the passage, and I could even hear their heavy breathing and shouting. Time is running out. Facing the complicated mechanism on the stone door, I am extremely anxious. Sweat slid down my forehead and soaked my collar. The intricate mechanisms on the stone gate stood silently before us, mocking us. The organization's pursuers were getting closer and closer, and I could clearly hear their heavy footsteps and rough curses echoing in the corridor. I was extremely anxious and felt that every second seemed as long as a year. We are trapped here like a turtle in a jar. Just then, a figure appeared at the other end of the passage. I immediately became alert and tightened my grip on the weapon. Jack and Sophia were also ready for battle. In the dim light, I could see the person coming. It was a woman with long, fiery red hair and sharp and determined eyes. She walked straight towards us without showing any hostility. "My name is Isabella Davis," she said calmly. "I heard you were in trouble. Maybe I can help." I looked at the woman in front of me, my heart full of doubts. In this dangerous environment, anyone can be an enemy. I have to proceed with caution. "Who are you? Why are you helping us?" I asked, with a hint of weariness in my tone. "I used to be a member of a team that specialized in cracking ancient mechanisms," Isabella explained. "I quit because I couldn't stand the team's cooperation with some illegal organizations. I heard about your story, so I came here to help." I remained wary, but Isabella's words gave me a glimmer of hope. I looked around, but I still had no clue about the mechanism on the stone door, and the organization's pursuers were getting closer and closer. If she can really crack the mechanism, then we can escape. I weighed the pros and cons, and finally decided to trust her. "Do you know how to break this mechanism?" I asked. Isabella walked up to the stone door and carefully observed the symbols and structures on it. "I need a moment," she said. "Lily, you have research on ancient symbols. Can you come over and take a look?" Lily nodded and walked over to Isabella, and the two began to discuss in low voices. I noticed that while Isabella was observing the stone gate, she was also observing us quietly, as if she was assessing our credibility. I understand that she is somewhat wary of us, which is normal since we are strangers after all. At this moment, Henry Thompson's disgusting face appeared at the corner of the passage, followed by a group of fully armed members of the organization. I thought to myself that something was wrong, and immediately winked at Jack and Sophia. "It looks like we're running out of time," I whispered. "Get ready to fight." The three of us quickly occupied the advantageous terrain and used the narrow nature of the passage to block the attack of the organization members. Jack set up some simple traps, while Sophia used her accurate marksmanship to suppress the enemy's firepower. Gunshots, explosions, and roars echoed in the corridor. We tried our best to resist the fierce attack from the organization members. I knew we had to buy time for Isabella and Lily. As I shot, I kept an eye on Isabella and Lily. They were completely immersed in their research on the mechanism and did not seem to be affected by the fierce battle. I saw them sometimes pointing at the symbols on the stone door,
and discussing in a low voice, and sometimes taking out some tools to measure and compare. A glimmer of hope ignited in my heart. Perhaps they could really find a way to crack the mechanism. I noticed that Lily took out the stone tablet with symbols engraved on it that she had found in the passage from her backpack, and compared it with the symbols on the stone door with Isabella. Their expressions became more and more focused, as if they had discovered some key clues. Isabella's fingers moved quickly on the stone door, as if she was doing some complicated calculations. Just then, I saw Isabella and Lily exchange a look, and excitement appeared on their faces. Isabella took a deep breath and placed her hand on a specific spot on the stone door. The heavy sound of the stone door closing echoed in the empty underground base, making my eardrums buzz. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my pounding heart. The escape just now was extremely thrilling. If Isabella hadn't cracked the complicated mechanism at the critical moment, we would probably have been caught by the organization. Although we are temporarily safe now, a greater mystery is looming over us. Lily leaned against the stone door, her face pale, obviously not yet recovered from the tension. Isabella looked around quickly, her eyes sharp, like an alert cheetah. She has always been the calmest and most decisive of us, and the one I trust the most. Another member of the team, Aiden, seemed a little anxious. He kept fiddling with the communicator in his hand, trying to contact the outside world, but the underground base obviously blocked all signals. I looked around. This underground base was even larger than I had imagined. There was a towering dome above my head, the end of which was unclear to me. There was a cold metal ground under my feet, and a strange smell in the air, like some chemical substance or some ancient dust. The base was filled with many instruments and equipment that I had never seen before, with indicator lights of various colors flashing and low humming sounds. Some of the instruments looked like some kind of huge energy device, some looked like complex analytical instruments, and some had no apparent purpose at all, with strange and disturbing shapes. I realized that the environment we are in now is more dangerous than before. The organization went to great lengths to build this secret base, and there must be some ulterior motive behind it. Those strange instruments and mysterious atmosphere make me feel creepy. I have to stay alert and be careful about anything that might happen next. What should we do now? Lily's voice broke the silence with a hint of trembling. Isabella walked over to a large instrument and carefully observed the symbols and indicator lights on it. "This base must hold important secrets," she said firmly. "We must find out exactly where this place is and what the organization is doing here." I agree with Isabella. Instead of waiting for death, it is better to take the initiative. Maybe you can find a way to escape or even expose the organization's conspiracy. As for Aiden, although he looked a little flustered, I knew that deep down he also longed to find out the truth. We are a team, and we must stick together to get through this. Communication is completely cut off. Aiden put down the communicator and said in a low voice, "We are trapped here. Don't lose heart." I patted Aiden on the shoulder. "Let's find a solution together. I believe that even if we are in a desperate situation, as long as we work together, we will be able to find a way out." Isabella pointed to a dark passage deep in the base and said, "Let's go over there and take a look first." Her tone was unquestionable and full of the spirit of a leader. I nodded and tightened my grip on the weapon. Lily also took a deep breath, as if she was ready to face unknown danger. The passage was pitch black, with only the beam of our flashlights cutting through the darkness, illuminating a small area ahead. The air was filled with a stronger, strange smell, making it difficult to breathe. The base was silent, with only the sound of our footsteps and breathing echoing. This silence added to the tense atmosphere, as if something was lurking in the darkness, watching our every move. I felt my heart beating faster and faster, and sweat was oozing out of my palms. What is hidden deep inside this base? The beam of the flashlight bounced off the cold metal walls as Jack and I moved cautiously down the corridor.
The interior of the base was even larger and more complex than I had imagined. The air was filled with a strange smell mixed with disinfectant and machine oil, which was disgusting. We must find clues about the core secrets of the organization as soon as possible. Otherwise, once Charles launches his plan, the consequences will be disastrous. Jack and I exchanged a look, each realizing the danger of this adventure. "This place is eerily quiet," Jack said in a low voice. "I always feel like something is watching us in the dark." I nodded, also feeling a little uneasy. Charles is cunning, and we must always be vigilant. I gripped the gun tightly in my hand, trying not to make any noise. We have discussed before that if we encounter guards, we should try to avoid direct confrontation and focus on collecting intelligence first. At this time, Lily's excited voice came from the communicator. "Aiden, we found some documents. They look very important." "Good job, Lily," I responded. "Just be careful. We'll be there to join you soon." Lily's team's discovery gave me a glimmer of hope that maybe we could really stop Charles. But before I could be happy for long, Jack suddenly stopped and pointed ahead. "Look." I looked in the direction he was going and saw a passage leading underground, suddenly appearing before my eyes. There were 2 fully armed guards at the entrance of the passage, watching the surroundings vigilantly. My heart sank. It seemed that this was the entrance to the core secrets of the organization. "We have to find a way to get in," I said, "but we can't just fight head-on. These 2 guards are not easy to deal with." Jack thought for a moment and said, "We can make some noise to attract their attention, and then take the opportunity to sneak in." I was about to respond when suddenly, footsteps were heard from the other end of the corridor, followed by a familiar voice that echoed throughout the base. "Aiden, long time no see." Charles Clark. He actually showed up in person. He was wearing a black suit and had a playful smile on his face, as if everything was under his control. "Do you think you can find anything useful?" Charles said contemptuously. How naive. I forced myself to calm down. Now was not the time to panic. "Charles, your plot will not succeed." "Really?" Charles sneered. "Henry, let them see our strength." As soon as he finished speaking, dozens of armed men rushed out from both sides of the corridor and surrounded us. Leading the group was none other than Henry Thompson, Charles's right-hand man, and a ruthless fellow. "Looks like we'll just have to force our way in," I whispered to Jack. "Just what I want," Jack grinned, raising his weapon. A fierce gun battle broke out instantly. Jack and I stood back to back, covering each other. With our tacit cooperation and superb marksmanship, we barely managed to hold off the enemy's attack. But the enemy had too many people, and their firepower was too fierce, and we gradually felt overwhelmed. Just then, Sophia and Diana rushed out from the flank and rescued us. Their appearance gave us a chance to breathe, and also gave me hope. Lily, Peter, and Mark also arrived at the scene and joined the battle. The 6 of us, like wild animals trapped in a steel cage, fought back with all our might. Although the situation remains grim, an unprecedented fighting spirit has been ignited in my heart. I know that we must unite as one to survive this life and death struggle and stop Charles' crazy plan. The outcome of this battle not only concerns our personal life and death, but also the fate of the world. The roar of the explosion came from deep in the base. The lights above flickered, and rubble fell. Charles, the guy with gold-rimmed glasses and a gentle appearance but a crazy ambition, actually activated the self-destruct program. I felt a chill and my heart was pounding. The situation is very bad now. I quickly glanced around. Lily's face was pale, but she held the electromagnetic pulse gun tightly in her hand, her eyes firm. The big guy, Benjamin, was panting. His bulletproof vest was already damaged, but he still used his mountain-like body to block us. The technical expert Rachel was nervously operating her tablet computer, trying to crack the base's control system. We finally defeated most of the organization's members, and were about to stop their conspiracy, but we fell into an even greater crisis. Why did Charles initiate the self-destruct sequence? Is he crazy?
No, I don't think he's crazy. He is an extreme pragmatist and every move he makes is carefully calculated.
He must have his purpose for doing this. Is it to cover up something? Or is it to die together? I touched a piece of cold metal next to me, and my thoughts were instantly brought back to a few days ago. My ability to be touched by sight allowed me to see Charles and several top leaders of the organization holding a meeting here. They spoke of words like final stage, purification, and new world, with frenetic excitement. I didn't understand the meaning of these words at the time, but now combined with their terrible plan, I suddenly realized that Charles activated the self-destruct program, perhaps not only to destroy evidence, but also to cover up a bigger secret. Rachel, can you stop the self-destruct sequence? I asked loudly. Sweat beads appeared on Rachel's forehead. I'm trying, but their system has very advanced encryption. I need more time.
We don't have time,
Benjamin yelled. A huge block of concrete fell from the ceiling. He pushed me away, but was hit on the shoulder and let out a muffled groan. Lily immediately stepped forward to support him. Benjamin, how are you?
I'm fine, I won't die,
Benjamin said, gritting his teeth, but his face became even paler. We must find a solution quickly. Charles must have anticipated that we would try to stop the self-destruct sequence, and he must have had a backup plan.
We can't just sit there and wait for death.
I looked around again, hoping to find some clues. My eyes fell on an inconspicuous metal box in the corner. I have a strong feeling that this box is important. I immediately rushed over and touched the surface of the box. Scenes flashed through my mind. Several people in protective suits carefully placed a device emitting a faint blue light into a box, then locked it and set a complex combination lock. I recognized the device. It was the core component of the organization's plan. Charles must have had his reasons for hiding it here. My brain raced, piecing together all the clues. Charles activated the self-destruction program in order to cover up a bigger secret. He hid the core device here instead of taking it away, which means that the secret is in this base. His real purpose is not to destroy. Aiden, what did you find? Lily's voice interrupted my thoughts. I took a deep breath and pointed at the metal box. This contains the core device of the organization's plan. Charles' real purpose is not to destroy, but before I could finish my words, the ground suddenly shook violently. The lights above our heads went out completely, and we were plunged into complete darkness. An ominous premonition loomed over me. Charles' real purpose was far more terrifying than we imagined. Amid the hail of bullets, Oliver appeared like a god descending from the sky. I quickly assessed the situation. The base's self-destruction program was activated. The organization's members were extremely vicious, and we were trapped in the enemy's lair, isolated and helpless. Although Oliver brought strong support, it was just a drop in the bucket. A careful plan must be made to have a chance of escaping. I trust Oliver. After all, we met once before, and he came to support us on his own initiative, which shows that he is on our side. My ability to be reminded of something emotional might come in handy. This ability allows me to rewind past events by touching objects, perhaps finding crucial information that can turn the tide. I looked around. The walls of the base, the tables and chairs, and even the shells on the ground might all be hiding important clues. I immediately told everyone my idea. Oliver is experienced, and he suggested dividing the troops into 3 groups. Lily and Mark are proficient in computer technology and will be responsible for trying to shut down the self-destruct program. He and Jack and other members with strong combat capabilities will be responsible for attracting firepower and covering our actions. Sophia Isabella, I will be responsible for finding Charles and stopping his further crazy plans. This is undoubtedly a risky plan, but we have no choice. I have to believe in Lily and Mark's abilities. and believe that Oliver can withstand the enemy's attack. Everyone be careful, I growled and rushed out first. Sophia and Isabella followed closely behind. The three of us worked in perfect harmony, covering each other as we moved through the hail of bullets. I kept touching objects around me, trying to find clues about Charles and the organization's plans. A photo in the corridor caught my attention. The photo showed Charles and a young woman whose face had been deliberately scratched. I touched the photo, and a strong sense of sadness came over me. I saw Charles as a young man full of vigor and hope, and that woman was his beloved wife, who was brutally murdered by the organization.
This became the fuse for Charles's downfall and also explained his crazy revenge plan.
A mixture of anger and sympathy made me more determined to stop Charles. I continued forward and touched a cold metal device. I saw Charles enter the activation password for the self-destruct program here. More importantly, I saw where he was going next, the base's control center. I know where Charles is, I shouted. Follow me. The three of us ran all the way, broke through several blockades, and finally arrived at the gate of the control center. The gates are closed and heavily guarded. I took a deep breath and prepared to give it a try. Just then, I noticed an inconspicuous button next to the door. I hesitated for a moment, but still reached out and pressed it. The door slowly opened, and we rushed in. Charles was standing in front of the console, operating something frantically.
Charles, stop it!
I yelled. He turned around with a ferocious smile on his face. You're too late, Aiden. It's over. A fierce fight broke out in the control center. Charles is agile, and his moves are deadly. Sophia and Isabella also joined the fight, but we were still at a disadvantage. I kept looking for opportunities, touching objects around me, trying to find Charles's weaknesses. Finally, I touched the pocket watch that Charles always carried with him. I saw his wife handing him the pocket watch before she died and telling him to live well. This pocket watch was his last spiritual sustenance. I grabbed the watch and held it aloft. Charles, look at this. Do you remember her? When Charles saw the pocket watch, his eyes became confused for a moment. The movements of his hands also stopped. I took the opportunity to rush forward and subdue him. I let out a long sigh, feeling the strength drained from my body. It was over. Suddenly there was a violent tremor deep in the base. The joy of victory was like champagne bubbles, gently jumping on my tense nerves and then quickly bursting. Oliver's tired but excited face, Lily and Mark's post-disaster hug, and even Victoria White's serious but slightly approving eyes couldn't make me completely relax. I know this organization too well. Their cunning and cruelty are far beyond ordinary people's imagination. The fact that things ended so smoothly actually makes me feel uneasy. Victoria White, although nominally here to clean up the mess, I still remain wary of her. She is an official and represents the interests of the government. While our actions often skirt the edge of the law, it is not impossible that she is using us as scapegoats in order to distance herself from the government. Of course, for now, she is on our side, at least on the surface. I reminded myself not to let my guard down and try not to reveal too much key information in front of her. I looked around and saw that the core members of the organization had been subdued and the base was in a mess. The traces of the battle were clearly visible, and the air was filled with the smell of gunpowder and blood. I forced myself to calm down and started checking the scene to make sure nothing was missed. Benjamin, what are you doing? Oliver's voice interrupted my thoughts. I followed his gaze and saw Benjamin Green standing at the end of the corridor with a frown on his face, as if he was studying something. I walked over and found that there was an inconspicuous metal plate on the wall in front of him, which was almost integrated with the surrounding walls. I feel like something's wrong here, Benjamin said. The material of this metal plate is different from the surrounding walls, and look here. He pointed to an almost invisible gap on the edge of the metal plate. It looks like it can be opened. I observed carefully and found that it was just as he said. This discovery set off alarm bells in my heart. If there really is a hidden room here, then it is likely to contain more important secrets of the organization, or even their true purpose. My intuition tells me that this room must not be opened easily. It's like a Pandora's box. Once opened, we may face greater danger. But I can't ignore it. If there is any important information hidden in it, we must know it. I quickly weighed the pros and cons. The current situation is that we have destroyed the core strength of the organization and achieved a phased victory, but our understanding of this organization is still limited. If this room holds more information about the organization, it could be crucial to our next steps. We have to be careful, I said to Benjamin. There may be danger lurking in this room. Benjamin nodded in agreement. We worked together on the metal plate, trying to find a way to open it. Just then, Lily and Mark also came over. Did you find anything? Lily asked. I told them what I had discovered and shared my concerns with them. Lily and Mark also realized the seriousness of the matter, and solemn expressions appeared on their faces. The four of us gathered around the metal plate, and the atmosphere suddenly became tense. Oliver also came over and asked about the situation. I told him my discovery, and Oliver fell into deep thought. Open it, Oliver decided after a moment. We must know what's inside. I knew he was right, but I still felt uneasy. Benjamin checked the metal plate again and finally found a hidden switch. He pressed lightly, and the metal plate made a slight click sound, then slowly slid to one side, revealing a pitch-black entrance. A cold breath came from the entrance, making people shudder. We looked at each other, and everyone's nerves were tense again. Sweat soaked my collar, and the aftermath of the explosion was still echoing in my ears. After the base's self-destruction program was activated, we escaped with a narrow escape. Now we stand in front of this heavy metal door, behind which is the hidden room discovered by Benjamin Green. To be honest, I just wanted to find a safe place to rest at this moment. But Aiden insisted on going in to find out what was going on. I know what he is thinking. We have been through so much, and paid so much. If we give up now, all our previous efforts will be in vain. We must find out the secrets of the organization. Isabella carefully checked the door lock and the surrounding walls, her slender fingers moving on the metal surface, as if playing a silent piece of music. Her knowledge of mechanisms and traps is the best in our team, and I absolutely trust her judgment. There's no trap, she said finally, but the door locks electronically and requires a code. Lily walked forward and took out her precious computer from her backpack. Leave it to me. Lily is the technical genius in our team. There is no system she can't crack. I watched her operate skillfully and prayed silently in my heart that she would succeed. If we can't open this door, we may never know the ultimate purpose of the organization. A few minutes later, there was a click and the door lock opened. We filed in, and a musty smell hit our noses. The room was dimly lit, with only a few flickering emergency lights providing a faint glow. Various ancient artifacts are placed around the room, like collections from a museum. This is unlike any facility of the organization we've seen before. It's more like an altar. This place is weird, Benjamin Green whispered, with a hint of uneasiness in his voice. I looked around and felt a chill on my back. I tried to keep myself calm. Now was not the time to be scared. We had to find useful information. Lily's eyes were fixed on an old-fashioned computer in the corner of the room. The computer looked very old, and the screen was covered with dust. Lily walked over quickly and began to check the computer's connection cables. Maybe there's something we want in here, she said. I know what Lily is thinking. This computer may contain the core secrets of the organization. If we can crack it, we can completely uncover the organization's true purpose. Lily connected to her computer and began trying to crack the password. The room was silent, with only the sound of typing on the keyboard and our nervous breathing. As time passed, my heart beat faster and faster. Suddenly, Lily shouted excitedly, "Done." The computer desktop appeared on the screen, with only one folder on it. Lily opened the folder, which contained documents recording the organization's various plans and experimental data. We gathered around the computer, reading the contents of the document carefully. As I read more, my face became uglier and uglier. The documents revealed a shocking plan by the organization, one that could have destroyed an entire city. As we were studying the information, I suddenly felt something strange. The air in the room seemed to grow heavier, and an inexplicable feeling of oppression enveloped us. I raised my head and looked towards the corner of the room. Something seemed to be moving there. The gunshot was deafening, and the smell of gunpowder made it almost impossible for me to breathe. Henry Thompson, that old fox, actually set an ambush. I quickly glanced around the room and saw that the traitor Charles had been tied up and thrown in a corner, his face full of horror. It seems that he underestimated Henry's ruthlessness and thought he could save his life by informing on him. Now we are attacked from all sides, and the situation is worse than expected. I have to calm down. Since Henry knew this room, he must be aware of its importance. What is he trying to stop us from getting? My eyes fell on the old table in the middle of the room, on which stood a peculiarly shaped oil lamp. My intuition tells me that the key lies there. "Cover me," I shouted to Lily and Mark. They were also being suppressed by several of Henry's men, but after hearing my order, they immediately increased their firepower to buy me time. I crouched down and rushed to the table quickly. Henry seemed to realize my intention and roared at me, "Don't let him near that lamp." But it was too late. My fingers touched the cold metal lamp base. For a moment my brain seemed to be struck by electricity, and a strong feeling of dizziness came over me. Then countless broken images flooded into my mind. A dim room, cigar smoke, police high-ranking officials and gang leaders toasting and whispering. 20 years ago, in this room, they made a dirty deal. I saw a document that clearly recorded the names and crimes of all the participants. This document is hidden in the compartment of the lamp holder. I tried desperately to memorize every detail, to engrave the contents of the document deeply into my mind. This is not only the evidence that brings down Henry Thompson, but also the key to exposing the entire corruption network. "Aiden, what are you doing? Come back." Lily's anxious voice brought me back to reality. As the dizziness wore off, I realized I was still in danger. "Henry's men are approaching. I have to get out of here immediately." I pulled out a flash grenade and threw it hard at the enemy. The bright light and loud noise brought us a moment of respite. "Lily, Mark, let's go," I shouted and rushed to the only exit of the room. I know Henry won't let us go easily, and he will get the evidence back at all costs. But now, I have grasped their fatal weakness, and we are no longer the passive party. We fought and retreated, moving towards the exit with difficulty. The enemy's firepower is getting stronger and stronger, and our situation is becoming more and more dangerous. Just when I was almost in despair, I saw Lily's face suddenly turn pale, and her eyes looked over my shoulder to somewhere behind me. "Be careful," she shouted in horror. An ominous premonition came over me. I turned my head back suddenly, and a strong feeling of oppression made it almost impossible for me to breathe. What is it? What was it that frightened Lily so much? Just then, I heard a deep and familiar voice coming from deep in the corridor. That voice froze my blood. The sound of gunfire roars and the clanging of metal colliding intertwined into a symphony of death. Raymond Carroll, the once elegant and charming man, now looked like a trapped beast, with a crazy fire burning in his eyes. "Rewriting gang history? You're crazy, Raymond," I roared, sweat dripping down my cheeks. I quickly glanced around. Henry's men had been dispersed by us, but Raymond's appearance undoubtedly made the situation more complicated. I have to come up with a solution as soon as possible. Raymond's madness is uncontrollable. He can do anything for his so-called ideal, even including dying with us. "Lily, the computer data shows that the activation device is in the room. We must destroy it before Raymond activates it," I shouted to Lily. Lily is our intelligence expert, and her analytical skills are crucial. "Got it," Lily's tone was as calm as ever. Sophia, Isabella, Diana, you go find the activation device, and the others provide cover. Lily made quick arrangements. She knew that time was running out, and she had to race against time.
Oliver, Jack, hold Henry back. I growled, my eyes locked on Raymond.
I'll deal with Raymond. Raymond's appearance was unexpected, but now is not the time to dwell on it. I must concentrate on dealing with the crisis at hand. I took a deep breath and touched the wall beside me. A cool feeling came from my fingertips, and then a series of pictures flashed through my mind. Those were the scenes of Henry's men's activities here before. My ability Sights and Feelings allows me to recall past events by touching objects, which gives me a huge advantage in battle. I can predict the enemy's actions and gain the upper hand. Bang! Raymond's gunshot interrupted my thoughts. I quickly dodged and the bullet flew past my cheek. The burning pain made me more sober. Raymond's skills are even better than I thought. He inherited his family's fighting skills, and every move is deadly. I didn't dare to take it lightly. While dodging his attacks, I continued to touch the objects around me, trying to find his weakness. Oliver and Jack are worthy of being special forces. They cooperated well and kept Henry firmly restrained. Although Henry was also very skilled, he gradually fell into a disadvantage under the joint efforts of the two.
Found it!
Sophia's voice came from deep in the room, with a hint of excitement, but also a hint of nervousness. But there are a lot of traps around. My heart tightened. There were traps around the starting device. This was expected. Raymond would not easily let others destroy his plan. I must deal with Raymond as soon as possible, and then go to support Sophia and the others. Raymond's attacks became more and more fierce. I felt my strength was gradually depleting, so I had to fight quickly. I touched a table next to me again, and the picture flashed again. This time I saw Raymond's previous action trajectory. He was used to having a short pause after attacking. This was his weakness. I took a deep breath, endured the pain in my body, and continued to deal with Raymond. He kept testing me, looking for my weakness, and I was waiting for the best moment. During the fierce battle, I gradually mastered Raymond's attack patterns, and his every punch and every dodge became predictable. I saw the right time. The joy of victory came like a tide, but was instantly overwhelmed by the fear of death. Raymond and Henry were pinned to the ground by us, unable to move. Oliver was breathing heavily, and Jack's face was covered in sweat. The three of us exchanged glances and saw the relief of surviving the disaster in each other's eyes. In the distance, Sophia and Isabella high-fived each other. They succeeded. The organization's conspiracy was completely shattered, but at this moment something strange happened. Charles, who was tied up by us, suddenly struggled violently. He twisted his body like a slippery loach. Alarm bells went off in my heart. This guy definitely has no good intentions. I was about to step forward to stop him, but I saw that he somehow broke free from the rope. He pounced on an inconspicuous control panel on the wall like a mad dog. "Oh no," I shouted, feeling that something was wrong. Before I could rush over, he pressed a red button hard. At that moment, I felt the whole world was shaking. The rocks above my head began to fall, and the ground began to shake violently. The shrill alarm sounded throughout the room and the red warning light flashed wildly. What's even more terrifying is that there is a faint sweet smell in the air, which makes me dizzy and nauseous. "It's poison gas," Isabella screamed in horror. "Quick, we have to leave here immediately." I immediately understood that Charles wanted to die with us. He would rather perish together with his enemy than accept failure. This madman. The situation is extremely critical now. There are more and more falling rocks above our heads, which may bury us alive at any time. The poisonous gas became thicker and thicker. Breathing became difficult, and my consciousness began to blur. Escape. Must escape. My brain was working rapidly, assessing the current situation. Charles cannot be trusted, there is no doubt about that. The most important thing now is to unite and find a way to escape. Sophia, Isabella, Oliver, and Jack are all trustworthy partners, and we must help each other to escape. I suppressed my discomfort and shouted, "Don't panic, everyone. Follow me." I looked around, trying to find the exit. The walls of the room were crumbling, and the original exit had been blocked by rubble. Damn it. Are we really going to die here? No, I can't give up. I must live. I forced myself to calm down and take in my surroundings. Suddenly my eyes fell on an inconspicuous vent in the corner of the room. It was a very small vent, and no one would normally notice it. My heart skipped a beat. Perhaps this was our only way to survive. Over there, ventilation vent. I pointed at the vent and shouted, "Let's escape from there." Everyone looked in the direction I pointed, and a glimmer of hope ignited in their eyes. However, the vent is too small and we can't get through. What should we do? I clenched my teeth, and countless thoughts flashed through my mind. As time passed, the poison gas became thicker and thicker, and the room shook more and more violently. We don't have much time left. At this critical moment, I suddenly remembered. The room began to collapse. Dust filled the air, and choking poisonous gas quickly spread. I took a deep breath and forced myself to calm down. My brain was working rapidly, trying to recall the layout of the room that I had seen when I was touched by the scene before. At that time, I was walking around the room like a ghost, and every corner and every wall was extremely clear. Yes, that's right. Behind the fireplace, there is a hidden escape. I immediately told everyone about this discovery. There is a secret passage behind the fireplace. Let's go through there. Oliver questioned, "How do you know? What if it's a trap?" I understand his concerns, and in such circumstances caution is necessary. But I know even more clearly that staying here will lead to death. Believe me, I said firmly. My previous ability allowed me to see the structure of the room. The secret passage is the only way out. I looked around at everyone. Anna and Kate's eyes revealed trust, which gave me great encouragement. As for the others, they couldn't care less now, and could only take a gamble.
Okay, we believe you, Aiden, Anna said.
The poisonous gas is getting thicker and thicker, and we must act quickly. I quickly pulled down the curtains, soaked them, and distributed them to everyone, making simple gas masks. This can resist the poison gas a little. We need to act quickly. We moved in the direction of the fireplace. On the road, a huge wall collapsed, blocking the way. The smoke was so thick that it was almost impossible to breathe. What should I do? Kate's voice trembled a little. I looked around and saw metal pipes scattered on the ground. "Oliver, do you have a cutter in your toolbox?" I shouted. Oliver reacted immediately and took out the cutter from the toolbox. "Yes. What are you going to do?" "Use it to cut the pipe, make a lever, and we'll pry the wall open." Everyone took action immediately. I directed everyone to work together. Oliver and another police officer were responsible for cutting and welding the pipes. Anna and Kate were responsible for cleaning up the rubble, and the others were responsible for maintaining order and preventing stampedes. We worked together and finally pried open a gap big enough to barely get through. I was the first to go through, and then helped others to go through one by one. However, the test is not over yet. Just as we were about to reach the fireplace, a stronger poisonous gas leaked out from the front, accompanied by a pungent smell. "No, the poison gas is too strong, we can't get through," Oliver said in pain, covering his mouth and nose. I realized I had to find a way to block the poison gas. I noticed some old rugs piled in the corner of the room. "Soak the carpet and seal the gaps," I shouted. We divided the work again. Quickly soaked the carpets, and then worked together to stuff them into the gaps where the gas was leaking. Although this is only a temporary solution, it at least buys us some time. I took a deep breath, held it, and rushed to the fireplace. According to my previous memory, I found the hidden switch and pressed it hard. The fireplace slowly rotated, revealing the passage behind it. "Hurry, come in," I called to everyone. We filed in and escaped into the secret passage. The air in the secret passage was polluted, but at least there was no poisonous gas. We walked along the narrow passage and finally saw the light of the exit. When we escaped from the room, Victoria White was waiting outside. She arranged for an ambulance and a subsequent cleanup. What happened next flashed by quickly, like a montage in a movie. Victoria handed the collected evidence to Richard White. The corruption within the police station was eradicated, and Raymond, Charles, and others were also punished by law. Because of this action, I became a hero of the police station, and my name became known throughout New York City. I thought everything was over, and I could return to my peaceful life. However, I felt an inexplicable uneasiness, as if something was lurking in the darkness, slowly approaching me. I took a deep breath. The cool morning air in New York soothed the remaining anxiety in my heart. The storm finally passed. Raymond's conspiracy was shattered, and both the memory world and the real world returned to peace. I finally figured out my own life experience and learned the truth about the bloody event 20 years ago. Although it was cruel, it made me feel relieved. Thinking back on it all, I still feel scared. Raymond, the man who was once like a mentor to me, turned out to be so cruel and ruthless that he intended to falsify history and whitewash himself. He used me. He used Sophia. He used the whole city. I was once confused and didn't know who to trust or what to do. But Sophia's determination and the support of my partners gradually made me see Raymond's true face. I realized that if I continued to avoid and be haunted by the shadows of the past, then I would never be truly free. Sophia, this strong woman, made great efforts to save her sister. Her love for her sister eventually moved Lily, who was controlled by Raymond. Watching the sisters hugging each other and crying, a warm feeling surged in my heart. Their stories made me understand that even people who have made mistakes deserve to be redeemed. I began to think seriously about my life. I can't live in the shadow of the past anymore. I need to look forward. Although Raymond's actions were hateful, he was also one of the victims of this tragedy. Hatred only breeds more hatred, and I can't let myself become another Raymond. I decided to let go of the past, stop obsessing over revenge, and put my energy into more meaningful things. I looked around and saw that my friends were all there. Old John, the experienced old detective, looked at me with his wise eyes, as if to say, "Kid, you did a good job." Although the young hacker Lilith was once used by Raymond, she finally chose justice, and her technology played a crucial role in this incident. There are also those friends who support me silently. Their existence gives me great strength. I know very well that without them, I would not be where I am today. Our friendship has become even deeper after this test. We are a team, and we will continue to defend justice in this city and prevent similar tragedies from happening again. I decided to use my abilities to help those in need. I know that there are still many dark corners in this city, and there are many people like me who have lost their way. I want to use my personal experience to guide them and help them find their own light. I remembered what Sophia once said: true salvation is not to forget the past, but to accept the past and draw strength from it. This sentence is deeply imprinted in my mind and has become my life creed. I looked up and saw the rising sun, my heart filled with hope. I know the road ahead is still long, but I am no longer afraid, because I know that I am not fighting alone. I have my partners and I have my beliefs.
New York, a city that has experienced countless storms, will surely usher in a brighter future after experiencing this baptism of darkness.
And I will be a part of this bright future. The vault is closing, but the next enigma awaits. Click that bell, or the truth may bury you forever.